Chapter 641, Grade 3 Spirit Weapon. Earlier, when he saw Duan Lingtian execute an ability that was difficult to perceive with his own eyes, Zhang Shouyang was already greatly shocked. Now Duan Lingtian's words seemed as if he knew a Grade 4 weapons craftsman, and it caused Zhang Shouyang to be even more shocked. He suddenly felt that the little fellow that he had to take care of a few years ago had already truly grown up into a man. Perhaps, it won't be long before he'll be able to surpass me. Wait. He might have already surpassed me now. Zhang Shouyang sighed to himself. In terms of age, he was almost 10 years older than Duan Lingtian, but his natural talent and ability was something he felt inferior to Duan Lingtian. Not mentioning anything else, just the ability Duan Lingtian used to deal with his second brother was something that he was unable to discern what actually was going on from beginning to end. If it wasn't for him noticing the composure Duan Lingtian possessed at the time and realized that it was an ability Duan Lingtian executed, otherwise he would really be like the surrounding crowd of spectators and think that Zhang Shouyang himself went mad. Grade 4 weapons craftsman. Duan Lingtian couldn't help but snicker when he heard Zhang Shouyang. He wasn't a Grade 4 weapons craftsman now, as his cultivation had broken through to the void initiation stage now, and he had already condensed a Grade 3 weapon flame. So long as he possessed sufficient materials, he was completely capable of refining a Grade 3 spirit weapon. But he didn't reveal it for now. Sort of. Zhang Shouyang was slightly unable to understand what Duan Lingtian meant. But, he saw the strong confidence that was contained within Duan Lingtian's eyes now, and it was as if Duan Lingtian was confident in returning a completely new Grade 4 spirit weapon wine gourd to him. For a time, his breathing became rapid. Brother Lingtian, what materials do you need? I'll go look for it right away. Zhang Shouyang was slightly impatient. He'd wanted to advance the wine gourd he carried by his side to the ranks of a Grade 4 spirit weapon even in his dreams, and now that he'd seen hope, he naturally wouldn't let it slip by. Duan Lingtian lightly smiled, and with a raise of his hand, he withdrew a paper and brush from his spatial ring. Duan Lingtian swung the brush to write down dense amounts of exquisite writing on the blank paper. If a high-grade weapons craftsman was here and saw the materials that Duan Lingtian wrote now, they would surely be greatly shocked. Because the pile of materials that Duan Lingtian wrote out now were all the materials required to refine a Grade 3 spirit weapon. Some of these materials were even the core material used to refine a Grade 3 spirit weapon. But Zhang Shouyang didn't know all this. As the saying goes, technical skills required specialization. Although his natural talent in the martial Dao was high, he knew nothing about the Dao of weapons refinement. Just these. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian stopped writing and put away his brush. Besides some materials required to advance Zhang Shouyang's spirit weapon wine gourd's grade, the pile of materials he wrote down also contained the materials required to raise the grade of the Grade 4 cauldron in his possession. He believed that with the Zhang clan's ability, Zhang Shouyang would very quickly be able to gather all these materials. I'll go gather it right now. Zhang Shouyang received the paper from Duan Lingtian and hurriedly stood up, and he was slightly impatient. But before he left, he seemed to have thought of something and looked at Duan Lingtian as he said, "Brother Lingtian, why don't you stay in my Zhang clan estate for a few days? After I gather all these materials, you can take along my wine gourd and leave to look for that weapons craftsman." All right, Duan Lingtian nodded and agreed. As far as he was concerned, there was no great difference between staying in the Zhang clan estate or the Darkstone Empire's estate in the capital. Moreover, Su Li was the only friend he had there, whereas Su Li had been elusive lately and they'd rarely met. In Zhang clan estate, he was instead able to drink wine and chat with Zhang Shouyang, and it was cozy. Chong, return to the courtyard and prepare a guest room for Brother Lingtian. I'll go gather these weapons refinement materials. In next to no time, Zhang Shouyang instructed Wang Chong before leaving hurriedly. The matter was related to the grade of his wine gourd spirit weapon and he didn't dare dally. Brother Lingtian, excuse him. Wang Chong spoke with slight embarrassment as she looked at her husband that left hastily. There's no harm done. I can understand big brother Zhang's feelings. Duan Lingtian shook his head. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian returned to the courtyard that Wang Chong and Zhang Shouyang stayed at under the lead of Wang Chong. The courtyard was extremely spacious, and there were many empty rooms. Wang Chong called over 2 servant girls to tidy up a room for Duan Lingtian before allowing Duan Lingtian to put up in it. Feel free to ask if you need anything. After Duan Lingtian went in, Wang Chong lightly smiled. All right, Duan Lingtian replied. Sorry for troubling you, sister-in-law. It's not a problem. Wang Chong shook her head before leaving the room. Brother Ling Tian, rest well, I'll be leaving first. As Wang Chong left, she closed the door on her way out. Duan Ling Tian instead sat cross-legged on the bed and held the wind concept fragment in his hand before withdrawing a mid-grade origin stone and starting to cultivate. 9 Dragons War Sovereign Technique, Earth Dragon Form. Duan Ling Tian's entire mind and body was immersed in his cultivation, and he'd forgotten the time. After completely consuming a mid-grade origin stone, Duan Ling Tian withdrew another and continued cultivating. Coupled with the assistance of the wind concept fragment, his cultivation and wind concept advanced at an extremely swift speed. During this period of time, Duan Ling Tian would occasionally feel hungry and leave his room to eat, whereas Wang Chong would order for delicacies to be specially prepared for him every single time. When one had cultivated to a level like Duan Ling Tian was at now, one was able to achieve inedia one to a certain extent, and one was able to only eat after quite a period of time without affecting the body in the slightest. In his cultivation, Duan Ling Tian forgot the time. After an unknown amount of time had passed, Duan Ling Tian awoke from his cultivation. Another mid-grade origin stone is gone. As he looked at the stone that had lost the origin energy of the heaven and earth to seem dim and listless in his hand, Duan Ling Tian shook his head and casually tossed the stone aside. Subsequently, another mid-grade origin stone appeared in his hand. Right when Duan Ling Tian intended to continue cultivating. Brother Ling Tian, Duan Ling Tian heard a wave of sound come from outside his door. This voice wasn't unfamiliar to Duan Ling Tian, and it was precisely the voice of Zhang Shouyang. Big brother Zhang, you've returned. Duan Ling Tian left his bed and opened the room door. Big brother Zhang, Duan Ling Tian lightly smiled to Zhang Shouyang. Brother Ling Tian, I've found all the materials you want, here. With a raise of his hand, Zhang Shouyang passed over a spatial ring that had already had its ownership removed. So fast, Duan Ling Tian was slightly surprised. It has already been a month, is this still fast? Zhang Shouyang disapproved when he heard Duan Ling Tian. After all, during this months, besides utilizing the relationships of the Zhang clan to find that pile of materials, he himself had gone around to look for these materials. This also caused him to have never returned during this month. But Duan Ling Tian didn't know all this. It has already been a month. Duan Ling Tian came to a sudden understanding, and he never imagined that so many days had passed. He'd always been immersed in his cultivation and felt that only around 10 days had passed since he came to look for Zhang Shouyang that day. After receiving the spatial ring in Zhang Shouyang's hand, Duan Ling Tian looked at the wine gourd before Zhang Shouyang's waist. Big brother Zhang, give your spirit weapon wine gourd to me. All right, Zhang Shouyang nodded hurriedly before removing the wine gourd and passing it to Duan Ling Tian. Brother Ling Tian. Meanwhile, Zhang Shouyang hesitated for a moment before saying, during the process of searching for these materials, I heard a grade 5 weapons craftsman say that amongst those materials, there's a portion that are extremely high grade and even grade 4 spirit weapons are unable to use them. What, big brother Zhang, are you worried I'll cheat you of your materials? Duan Ling Tian laughed. Of course not. Zhang Shouyang hurriedly shook his head. I didn't mean it in that way, I was just curious. After all, that person was only a grade 5 weapons craftsman, and in terms of experience, he's naturally unable to compare to the grade 4 weapons craftsman that you know. As he finished speaking, Zhang Shouyang's tone contained slight flattery. After all, he still had to rely on that grade 4 weapons craftsman to help him advance the grade of his spirit weapon wine gourd. Haha, big brother Zhang, actually, that grade 5 weapons craftsman is right. Duan Ling Tian laughed. Huh, Zhang Shouyang was stunned. But, there's something that you've gotten wrong. I asked for these materials from you not for the sake of asking that person to help you advance your spirit weapon wine gourd the ranks of a grade 4 spirit weapon. After Duan Ling Tian restrained the smile on his face, he spoke slowly. Not advancing to the ranks of a grade 4 spirit weapon. Duan Ling Tian's words caused Zhang Shouyang to be unable to react to the meaning behind it for some time. This time, Duan Ling Tian didn't respond to Zhang Shouyang and instead lightly smiled as he looked at the latter while waiting for Zhang Shouyang to react. In next to no time, Zhang Shouyang recovered from his shock. Brother Ling Tian, that weapons craftsman you're going to see wouldn't be a grade 3 weapons craftsman, right? Zhang Shouyang's breathing became rapid, and he even breathed heavily as she spoke. Exactly. Duan Ling Tian nodded. The weapons craftsman I'm going to see is indeed a grade 3 weapons craftsman, Big Brother Zhang. When you see this spirit weapon wine gourd of yours next, it will have undergone a tremendous change. As Duan Lingtian spoke, he shook the wine gourd in his hand. Tremendous change. Zhang Shouyang was excited to the point his chest rose and fell continuously and was unable to calm down for a long time. He knew what Duan Lingtian meant by this. I'm going to have a grade 3 spirit weapon. At this moment, Zhang Shouyang even felt like he was dreaming. But he quickly realized that all this wasn't a dream, and it was completely real. Big Brother Zhang, I'll be leaving first, I'll come look for you again in a month. At that time, I'll bring back your wine gourd for you as well. With a raise of his hand, Duan Lingtian put away Zhang Shouyang's wine gourd, and then he bid his farewells to Zhang Shouyang before leaving the room with large strides. Zhang Shouyang, who recovered from his shock, personally sent Duan Lingtian to leave his own courtyard and leave the Zhang clan estate. Big Brother Zhang, just wait for my return. At the entrance to the Zhang clan estate, Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled as he looked at Zhang Shouyang, who still had excitement mixed within his eyes before turning and leaving. Zhang Shouyang heaved out a breath of air after he saw Duan Lingtian's figure vanish before his eyes, and then he turned around and returned to the Zhang clan estate. 641 Chapter 642, 70% Amplification. After Duan Lingtian left the Zhang clan estate, he of course didn't go look for any grade 3 weapons craftsman. Not to mention he didn't know a grade 3 weapons craftsman. Even if he did, he wouldn't go look for the person. After all, he himself was a grade 3 weapons craftsman. With the grade 3 weapon flame he controlled now, he was completely capable of refining the grade 3 spirit weapon himself. Relying on the lifetime worth of weapons refinement experience of the rebirth martial emperor, he was able to refine grade 3 spirit weapons that were much more outstanding than those refined by ordinary grade 3 weapons craftsmen. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian found an inn to stay at. The first thing he did after entering his room was to take out the spatial ring Zhang Shouyang gave him earlier and withdraw the pile of materials within it. These materials were precisely the pile of materials that he asked Zhang Shouyang to prepare. I'll improve the cauldron's grade first. Duan Lingtian didn't impatiently start helping Zhang Shouyang improve the grade of the spirit weapon wine gourd, and he instead took out his own grade 4 cauldron and advanced its grade by fusing it with a small portion of the materials. Hiss! On Duan Lingtian's palm, a strand of violet flames blazed into existence, whereas, at the surroundings of this violet flame, there seemed to be a layer of copper edges leaping about. Violet copper weapon flame. A flame like this was exactly a grade 3 weapon flame. After a short moment, the cauldron and pile of materials transformed into pools of liquid under the engulfment of the weapon flame, and they were distributed all over the surroundings and floated in midair. At the same time, Duan Lingtian's hands moved at speeds that grew swifter and swifter. Whoosh, 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 comma. Duan Lingtian's hands were swift to the limit, and some afterimages could faintly be noticed. If a high-grade weapons craftsman was here and saw this scene, the weapons craftsman would surely be greatly shocked. Only because Duan Lingtian was executing an extremely complicated weapons refinement technique at this moment. This complicated weapons refinement technique was advanced and unfathomable, and it was impossible for ordinary people to see through it. It could be imagined that a grade 3 spirit weapon refined with such a weapons refinement technique would surely be extremely outstanding. An hour passed. The pools of liquid started to fuse into one. 2 hours passed. 3 hours passed, an entire 7 hours passed before Duan Lingtian stopped and stood up. At the same time, a cauldron that flickered with a light bronze sheen slowly descended from midair. Whoosh! With a raise of his hand, Duan Lingtian easily caught the cauldron. Grade 3 spirit weapon cauldron. Duan Lingtian smiled as he looked at the cauldron in his hand. With this cauldron in his possession, it also meant that from today onwards, he only required sufficient materials before being able to refine a grade 3 spirit weapon or medicinal pill. After he put away the cauldron, Duan Lingtian didn't impatiently continue refining Zhang Shouyang's wine gourd, and he instead moved to stand before the window and opened it. Meanwhile, Duan Lingtian noticed that the horizon was covered in the red glow of sunset, and it was obviously dusk now. I never expected that I spent so much time. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. After washing up, Duan Lingtian lay on his bed and fell asleep. Refining a grade 3 spirit weapon required his attention to be gathered, and he couldn't be sluggish in the slightest. So Duan Lingtian was currently slightly exhausted. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian fell asleep, and he slept all the way until he woke up naturally. After he woke up, Duan Lingtian noticed that it was already afternoon on the next day. Subsequently, he directly got down from his bed and stretched his limbs as he emitted a brilliant and bright smile. I haven't had such good sleep in a long time. After he left the inn and ate a meal at a nearby restaurant, Duan Lingtian returned to his room and started refining the second grade 3 spirit weapon. Before he started refining it, he withdrew Zhang Shouyang's spirit weapon wine gourd. This wine gourd was already a grade 5 spirit weapon, and what Duan Lingtian had to do now was to upgrade it to the ranks of a grade 3 spirit weapon. This type of special spirit weapon is much more troublesome than ordinary spirit weapons like swords and sabers, even the materials required are of a wide variety. Duan Lingtian shook his head as he looked at the wine gourd in his hand. As far as he was concerned, this type of spirit weapon wine gourd was really slightly flashy with no substance. The materials required to refine a spirit weapon like this was sufficient for him to refine many spirit swords and spirit sabers of the same grade. Hiss! With a raise of his hand, the violet copper weapon flame blazed into existence on his palm once more. In next to no time, the spirit weapon wine gourd transformed into a pool of liquid on his palm. As for the other materials that he needed to use, all of them had transformed into pools of liquid under the weapon flame as well. Duan Lingtian's hand moved ceaselessly as his extremely profound weapons refinement technique appeared once more. Presently, with of his hands, Duan Lingtian seemed to have transformed into a 1,000-hand Buddha, and the speed his hands executed the weapon refinement technique was sufficient to shock anyone. Time silently passed by. Besides being able to be utilized as a utensil to hold an enormous amount of wine, the spirit weapon wine gourd was also a formidable offensive spirit weapon at the same time. So when it was refined, it was much more difficult than the cauldron from before. Duan Lingtian spent 7 hours of time to refine the grade 3 cauldron, whereas, this grade 3 wine gourd had instead exhausted an entire 15 hours of Duan Lingtian's time. When Duan Lingtian stopped and stood up and had successfully refined the spirit weapon wine gourd, it was already early in the morning the next day. Meanwhile, Duan Lingtian felt a wave of sleepiness assault him. Unknowingly, he fell onto the bed and fell asleep. When he woke up once more, Duan Lingtian became busy once more as he used the remaining materials to upgrade the violet myrtle flexible sword in his possession to become a grade 3 spirit weapon. Even though I have a quasi-royal grade spirit weapon that's able to provide an entire 100% amplification of strength and a grade 1 spirit sword that can provide an amplification of 90%, but those spirit weapons can't be used during the dynasty martial competition and the martial competition of the 10 dynasties. As the saying goes, a man's wealth was his own ruin. Duan Lingtian was sure that if the quasi-royal grade spirit weapon and grade 1 spirit weapon in his possession were exposed, he would surely suffer the pursuit of the numerous experts of the Darken dynasty and the various other dynasties. A quasi-royal grade spirit weapon and grade 1 spirit weapon were too precious, and to a certain extent, it was sufficient to bring calamity onto him. So he urgently required a spirit weapon that he could utilize, and a grade 3 spirit sword was undoubtedly the best choice. Although a grade 3 spirit sword was sufficient to arouse the covetous intentions of others, yet it wasn't to the extent of making those people act recklessly without fearing anything. After all, within the territory of the various dynasties, a grade 3 spirit weapon represented a grade 3 weapons craftsman, and no one would dare rashly offend such an existence, whereas, a grade 1 spirit sword and quasi-royal grade spirit sword was different to a grade 3 spirit weapon. A spirit weapon of that level was sufficient to make any expert in the various dynasties risk danger for it. Hiss! The grade 3 weapon flame, violet copper weapon flame, once again blazed into existence on Duan Lingtian's hand. At the same time, he continued to refine the third grade 3 spirit weapon. This grade 3 spirit weapon would be a spirit sword. A grade 3 spirit sword was much easier to be refined than the wine gourd, and Duan Lingtian only spent 10 hours to successfully refine it. Done. 10 hours later, Duan Lingtian stopped and looked at the 3-foot-long blade in his hand with a satisfied expression. The violet myrtle flexible sword that had been upgraded to become a grade 3 spirit weapon seemed to have a layer of faint violet sheen on its surroundings, and it looked to be extremely extraordinary. Let me try it. With a thought in his heart, the origin energy on Duan Lingtian's body raged. Whoosh! At the same time, the energy of heaven and earth roiled above Duan Lingtian, and in the end, it converged into numerous lifelike ancient horned dragon silhouettes that coiled down from the sky. A total of 7 ancient horned dragon silhouettes. along with Duan Lingtian's origin energy fusing into the violet myrtle flexible sword. The violet myrtle flexible sword instantly became straight, and at the same time, another 4 ancient horned dragon silhouettes and 9,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes appeared at the side of the 7 ancient horned dragon silhouettes that were already above Duan Lingtian. The 9,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes surrounded the 11 ancient horned dragon silhouettes at the center like stars twinkling around the moon. Not bad, a 70% amplification. The corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth curled into a smile, and he was very satisfied with this outcome. Even though I upgraded Big Brother Zhang's spirit weapon Wine Gourd to the ranks of a grade 3 spirit weapon earlier, I didn't test it, it ought to be able to amplify strength by 70%, right? Carrying along a heart full of curiosity, Duan Lingtian withdrew the spirit weapon gourd, along with his origin energy fusing into the spirit weapon gourd in his hand. Whoosh! Duan Lingtian quickly noticed that there were indeed 4 ancient horned dragon silhouettes and 9,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes in the sky above him. Just like my violet myrtle flexible sword, it's able to provide an amplification of 70%. Duan Lingtian smiled in satisfaction. Duan Lingtian stayed for an entire month in the inn and advanced his cultivation and wind concept slightly before leaving the inn. After he left, Duan Lingtian directly headed to the Zhang clan estate. Young Master Lingtian. Duan Lingtian had just arrived at the entrance to the Zhang clan estate when a Zhang clan guard stood out and bowed respectfully and reverently to Duan Lingtian. Young Master Lingtian. Instantly, the remaining guards hurriedly bowed to Duan Lingtian. You know me. Duan Lingtian looked at the guard in the lead with an astonished expression. He remembered clearly that 1 month ago when he arrived at the Zhang clan estate for the first time, this person wasn't amongst the Zhang clan guards that stood guarding the entrance. Young Master Lingtian, you might not know me, but 2 months ago, I saw you at our Zhang clan's man-made lake. The Zhang clan guard spoke hastily. His face was filled with reverence. He knew that although this violet-clothed young man looked to be very young, but he was the good friend of their Zhang clan's eldest young master. So that's how it is. Duan Lingtian came to a sudden understanding. 2 months ago, on the Zhang clan estate's man-made lake, because he'd used the soul skill, Thousand Illusion, to play a trick on Zhang Shouyuan, he'd indeed attracted many Zhang clan members to spectate. At that time, he didn't pay attention to the spectating people. Obviously, this Zhang clan guard was watching the show from amongst the crowd. Young Master Lingtian, please follow me. Under the lead of the Zhang clan guard, Duan Lingtian once again entered the Zhang clan estate and arrived at the courtyard that Zhang Shouyang and Wang Chong lived in. Young Master Lingtian, I'll leave first. The Zhang clan guard notified Duan Lingtian respectfully before turning and leaving. Thanks for the trouble. Duan Lingtian nodded and then walked into the courtyard. The courtyard was wide open, and its door wasn't closed. 642 Chapter 643, Zhang Shouyang's shock. Brother Lingtian. Duan Lingtian had just entered the courtyard when he heard an extremely excited voice sound out from within. The owner of the voice seemed as if he'd been waiting for Duan Lingtian for a long time. This voice wasn't unfamiliar to Duan Lingtian. Big Brother Zhang. Duan Lingtian emitted a light smile when he saw Zhang Shouyang, who walked out hastily to appear before his eyes. Brother Lingtian, please come in. Zhang Shouyang hurriedly invited Duan Lingtian into the courtyard, and at the same time, he instructed the nearby servant girl. No one is to enter without my permission. Yes. Although the servant girl didn't know what had happened that caused the young master to lose his composure like this, she still obeyed respectfully. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian was led into a spacious room by Zhang Shouyang. Zhang Shouyang's burning gaze stared at Duan Lingtian as he rubbed his palms together and had an expression of anticipation, and he completely lost his steady appearance from before. Brother Lingtian, that spirit weapon Wine Gourd of mine. Zhang Shouyang took a deep breath, and he looked at Duan Lingtian with a hopeful gaze. Alas! Duan Lingtian sighed intentionally. Zhang Shouyang's face went slightly pale when he saw Duan Lingtian like this. Could it be that the grade 3 weapons craftsman was unwilling to help me upgrade my spirit weapon Wine Gourd to the ranks of a grade 3 spirit weapon? For a time, he felt a slight sense of loss in his heart. Brother Lingtian, it's fine if that senior was unwilling to help. In any case, besides this spirit weapon Wine Gourd, I still have another grade 4 spirit weapon. After Zhang Shouyang returned to his senses, he instead started consoling Duan Lingtian. Big Brother Zhang, when did I say that the senior wasn't willing to help? Duan Lingtian couldn't help but laugh when he saw Zhang Shouyang like this. Zhang Shouyang was stunned before laughing bitterly. Only now did he realize that Duan Lingtian had intentionally sighed earlier. Big brother Zhang, here. With a raise of his hand, a wine gourd appeared out of thin air in his hands, and Duan Lingtian passed it over to Zhang Shouyang. This is my wine gourd. Zhang Shouyang, who received the wine gourd, couldn't help but be stunned as he looked at the spirit weapon wine gourd in his hand that was even more delicate and emitted a faint sheen. It was utterly impossible to discern that the current wine gourd was the same wine gourd from before. If it isn't your wine gourd, then could it be mine? Duan Lingtian shook his head and laughed. Zhang Shouyang's face flushed slightly red when he heard this. At the same time, flames that were formed from a ball of origin energy abruptly blazed into existence on his hand, and it fused into the wine gourd in his hand. Instantly, the sheen on the surroundings of the wine gourd became exceedingly deep. Whoosh! The energy of heaven and earth roiled in the sky above Zhang Shouyang, and in the end, it condensed into numerous ancient horned dragon silhouettes. First 11 ancient horned dragon silhouettes appeared, and it represented Zhang Shouyang's current cultivation at the 8th level of the void initiation stage. Subsequently, at the side of the 11 ancient horned dragon silhouettes, another 7 ancient horned dragon silhouettes and 7,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes appeared. The 7,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes seemed as if they were paying respects to the Supreme Emperor, and they surrounded the 18 ancient horned dragon silhouettes in the center like twinkling stars surrounding the bright moon. An amplification of the strength of 7 ancient horned dragons and 7,000 ancient mammoths. As he gazed at the sky above him, Zhang Shouyang's expression slightly froze for a while. In other words, my spirit weapon wine gourd is able to provide an amplification of an entire 70%. Now, even if it's placed in a pile of grade 3 spirit weapons, it's considered to be top grade amongst the top grade. Zhang Shouyang's heart couldn't help but start trembling intensely as the scene before his eyes had truly exceeded his expectations, and it caused him to be exceedingly shocked. Originally, as far as he was concerned, so long as his wine gourd was upgraded to the ranks of a grade 3 spirit weapon, then even if it provided an amplification of 66% or 67%, he would still feel satisfied. But now, it had completely exceeded his expectations. 70%. An entire 70%. A grade 3 spirit weapon that provided an amplification of 70%. Even though he wasn't a weapons craftsman and wasn't familiar with the Tao of weapons refinement, even if he didn't know about it, he'd heard about it. He was sure that not to mention the Darkin dynasty and the various dynasties, even the foreign lands might not possess a grade 3 spirit weapon that provided a 70% amplification. Duan Lingtian stood at the side with a calm expression. The changes in Zhang Shouyang's expression had been noticed by him since the beginning, and he wasn't surprised by Zhang Shouyang's shock. So long as it was an ordinary person, the person would surely be shocked after finding out about the wine gourd's amplification ability. The grade 3 spirit weapon refined by me is equivalent to it being refined by the rebirth martial emperor himself. In the entire Cloud continent, I'm afraid no weapons craftsman is able to refine a grade 3 spirit weapon that provides an amplification of 70%. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. Perhaps there were many grade 2 and even grade 1 weapons craftsmen in Cloud continent. However, perhaps these weapons craftsmen were able to easily refine grade 2 and grade 1 spirit weapons that surpassed a grade 3 spirit weapon that provided an amplification of 70%. But if they were made to refine a grade 3 spirit weapon, it was practically impossible for them to refine a grade 3 spirit weapon that provided a 70% amplification. That was already unrelated to the grade of a weapons craftsman, and it was instead related to the comprehension and experience of the weapons craftsman in the Tao of weapons refinement. I haven't headed to the foreign lands in this age. I wonder if a figure that can compare with the rebirth martial emperor in the Tao of weapons refinement has appeared on Cloud continent. But I can be sure of one thing. During the second lifetime of the rebirth martial emperor, there was no weapons craftsman on Cloud continent that could compare to him. This was something that Duan Lingtian was extremely sure of from the memories of the rebirth martial emperor. Duan Lingtian gradually restrained his thoughts. On the other side, Zhang Shouyang had finally recovered from his shock. He fondly stroked the wine gourd in his hand, and his gaze was filled with a burning sheen. Big brother Zhang, that senior said that he only helped you increase the amplification ability of this wine gourd, but the volume within the wine gourd wasn't increased. Duan Lingtian looked at Zhang Shouyang and smiled. So, the wine gourd in your hand can only hold the amount of wine that it could hold previously. Zhang Shouyang returned to his senses and shook his head. That's not a problem, in any case, the original volume was already sufficient for me. As he finished speaking, Zhang Shouyang completely sobered up, and he took a deep breath as he looked sincerely at Duan Lingtian. Brother Lingtian, thank you. Zhang Shouyang expressed his gratitude with extreme sincerity. Big brother Zhang, you're treating me like a stranger, both of us becoming acquainted with each other is fate by itself. Not to mention, if it wasn't for you lending a hand at the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's ancient city of Everlast all those years ago, I would probably have died at the hands of that withered old man since long ago. Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled as he spoke slowly. When he recalled the dangerous scene at that day in the ancient city of Everlast's Eternal Jade restaurant, he still felt a slight lingering fear in his heart even until today. At that day, not only had the cultivation of Shang Quan who always followed by his side been crippled, even the lives of himself and Li Fei were in imminent danger. At the critical moment, it was precisely Zhang Shouyang that lent a hand and killed that withered old man. This life-saving favor was something that Duan Lingtian was forever unable to forget. As the saying goes, karma goes in a circle, and kindness is rewarded in kindness. In the past, I didn't quite believe these words, but I believe it now. After receiving Duan Lingtian's reminder, Zhang Shouyang couldn't help but recall the scene from that day and he sighed with emotion. Brother Lingtian. In next to no time, Zhang Shouyang's face went serious as he said word by word. In the future, if you have anything you need help with, then I, Zhang Shouyang, am willing to lay down my life. In the entire Darken dynasty, there was only a single grade 3 spirit weapon that was known of to the public. Moreover, it was controlled in the hands of the Darken dynasty's imperial family. Now, Duan Lingtian had given him a grade 3 spirit weapon, and to him, it was an extremely great favor that he was unable to return. Big brother Zhang, you're being too serious, but there really is something that I have to trouble you with. Duan Lingtian smiled. Please go ahead. Zhang Shouyang listened intently. Big brother Zhang, if it's possible, I hope you can use your relationships to help me search for an extremely precious medicinal material. It's the medicinal material on this painting, and it's called the Ageless Root. With a raise of his hand, a painting had appeared in Duan Lingtian's hand. On the painting, a root-shaped medicinal material was presented there, and when looked at carefully, it was like the sharp claws of the divine beast phoenix of legend. Ageless Root. Zhang Shouyang's brows raised and he received the painting from Duan Lingtian with a serious expression. Don't worry brother Lingtian, I'll try my best to find this type of medicinal material for you. Thank you, big brother Zhang. Duan Lingtian hurriedly thanked him before saying, besides that, if big brother Zhang has a way to obtain spirit fruits used by void initiation stage martial artists that are of no use to you, I hope that you can transfer it over to me. I'll surely thank you generously. As he finished speaking, Duan Lingtian was slightly hesitant. After all, Zhang Shouyang was a void initiation stage martial artist as well, and he was similarly fighting on the path to head to the martial competition of the 10 dynasties. If it was a spirit fruit that he hadn't consumed in the past, then it was surely impossible for him to give it to another. Everyone had their own selfishness. This was something that Duan Lingtian could understand. Brother Lingtian, if you speak like this then you're not taking me to be your friend. You've asked someone to assist me in upgrading my wine gourd to the ranks of a grade 3 spirit weapon and have given me a great kindness. If I'm really able to obtain a spirit fruit used by a void initiation stage martial artist, then I'll surely present it to you and will absolutely not even frown for a moment. Zhang Shouyang spoke sincerely. Thank you, big brother Zhang. Duan Lingtian thanked, and then he said, Big brother Zhang, since it's like this, then I'll take my leave first. Brother Lingtian, why don't you stay here until the dynasty martial competition? Zhang Shouyang suggested. There's no need. Duan Lingtian refused Zhang Shouyang's good intentions. I still have things to take care of, and it's more convenient if I return. He still remembered that he'd made a trip to the Milky Way City's treasure-gathering pavilion the other day and had once told Pavilion Master Shang Ying to look for him at the Darkstone Empire's estate in the capital of the Darken Dynasty when Shang Ying had news about the spirit fruits used by void initiation stage martial artists or the Ageless Root. If Shang Ying really had any news and came to look for him, yet he wasn't there, then he would really be extremely regretful. Okay, Zhang Shouyang nodded and didn't continue persisting. I'll send you out. Subsequently, Zhang Shouyang intended to send Duan Lingtian out of the Zhang clan estate. The two of them had only just walked side by side out of the courtyard when they saw a figure rush over hastily, and it was exactly Wang Chong. 643 Chapter 644, A Spirit Fruit Appears Again. Chong, why are you in such a hurry? Zhang Shouyang couldn't refrain from asking curiously when he saw Wang Chong panting for breath as she returned hastily. Wang Chong panted heavily as she said, Brother Yang, father asked you to go over, the Grand Elder found a spirit fruit and intends to give it to you. But second mother has brought along second brother to ask for that spirit fruit, and it caused father to be in an extremely difficult position. So father used a voice transmission to ask someone to notify me to ask you over. Wang Chong finished speaking in a single breath. Spirit fruit, Duan Lingtian's gaze lit up. Since the Zhang clan's patriarch wanted to the spirit fruit to Zhang Shouyang, then that spirit fruit was undoubtedly a spirit fruit used by a void initiation stage martial artist. Brother Lingtian, looks like your luck isn't bad. Zhang Shouyang smiled to Duan Lingtian. Before Wang Chong could react and understand what exactly was going on, Zhang Shouyang had called out to Duan Lingtian and walked with large strides towards the center area of the Zhang clan estate. The Zhang clan audience hall was there. All along the way, Duan Lingtian and Zhang Shouyang walked side by side, and the guards and servants they met on the way bowed respectfully to Zhang Shouyang. Eldest young master, even all the Zhang clan disciples were respectful and reverent to Zhang Shouyang. With big brother Zhang's natural talent and strength, it's practically a done deal that he'll inherit the position of patriarch in the Zhang clan. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. If big brother Zhang hasn't consumed that spirit fruit before, then you consume it yourself, said Duan Lingtian to Zhang Shouyang. Although he impatiently wanted a spirit fruit that was used by void initiation stage martial artists, as the saying goes, a gentleman does not seize something that's loved by another. If the spirit fruit was of use to Zhang Shouyang, then he would truly be slightly unable to accept it. Brother Lingtian, no matter if I've used that spirit fruit or not, I'll still give it to you. Zhang Shouyang spoke sincerely. This was his promise, a man's promise. The grade 3 spirit weapon Duan Lingtian gave him was undoubtedly a great favor, and even if he used spirit fruits to return it, it would be difficult to fully repay Duan Lingtian. But he was still thinking of slowly returning it now. Zhang Shouyang's resolution caused Duan Lingtian to be unable to refrain from feeling warm in his heart. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian followed behind Zhang Shouyang to walk into the Zhang clan audience hall. The Zhang clan audience hall was beautifully decorated and there were 3 people standing within. One of them stood at a side. The other 2 stood at the other side, and they stood facing the former. The person that stood alone at the side was a dignified middle-aged man that wore blue robes and exuded a dignified aura from between his brows. He's probably the Zhang clan patriarch. With just a glance, Duan Lingtian guessed the identity of the dignified middle-aged man, and the facts proved that Duan Lingtian wasn't wrong. Brother Lingtian, this is my father and the patriarch of our Zhang clan. Zhang Shouyang's voice entered into Duan Lingtian's ears in a timely manner. Patriarch Zhang. Duan Lingtian looked at the Zhang clan's patriarch and lightly nodded in greeting. The Zhang clan's patriarch nodded to Duan Lingtian. You ought to be that friend of Yang's, right? You possess such an amazing ability at such a young age, and it's truly shocking. As he finished speaking, the patriarch's gaze seemed to contain a deep meaning within it, and it caused Duan Lingtian to be unable to help but feel stifled. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian's gaze descended onto the other 2 people in the audience hall. A middle-aged woman and a young man. Presently, the 2 of them were glaring angrily at him, and if the flames of rage in their eyes could be sprayed out, it would have probably already burnt him into ash. These 2 people weren't unfamiliar to Duan Lingtian. They were the wife of the Zhang clan's patriarch and the second young master of the Zhang clan, Zhang Shouyang. Presumably, the Zhang clan's patriarch looked at me in that way because of the matter of me teaching Zhang Shouyang a lesson 2 months ago. At this moment, it wasn't difficult for Duan Lingtian to guess this. Patriarch Zhang, you're too kind. But, when faced with the patriarch's words that contained a deep meaning, Duan Lingtian's expression remained unchanged as he replied neither arrogantly or humbly. This also caused Patriarch Zhang to greatly admire Duan Lingtian, and he looked at Zhang Shouyang and said, Yang, you've made an extraordinary friend. I heard this friend of yours intends to participate in the dynasty martial competition that's held 4 months from now. I anticipate it extremely. Brother Lingtian will surely not let father down. Zhang Shouyang nodded, and his words were filled with confidence to Duan Lingtian. Father, I heard Grand Elder found a spirit fruit. In next to no time, Zhang Shouyang asked. Practically the instant that Zhang Shouyang finished speaking, The expressions of the nearby woman and Zhang Shouyuan instantly darkened. Both of them looked at each other, and they saw unwillingness in each other's eyes. Damn it, how did he get the news so quickly? The woman's voice transmission was filled with a violent temper. Mother, I'm not resigned. If I'm able to obtain that spirit fruit, I'll surely be able to break through to the 7th level of the void initiation stage in one go. At that time, I'll surely be able to advance in the dynasty martial competition and obtain the qualification to participate in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties. Zhang Shouyuan's voice transmission was filled with unwillingness. Yes. When faced with Zhang Shouyang's question, the patriarch nodded, and with a raise of his hand, a spirit fruit with flowing lights revolving atop it appeared in his hand. Zhang Shouyang's eyes lit up when he saw this spirit fruit, yet beside him, the corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth instead curled into a bitter smile. He smiled bitterly for a reason none other than the fact that he'd already seen this spirit fruit, and not only that, he'd even consumed it once. Spirit Void Fruit. It was one of the 2 spirit fruits that the Milky Way City's treasure-gathering pavilion's master, Shang Ying, gave him as part of the deal they made. When his cultivation approached the 2nd level of the void initiation stage, it was because he consumed the spirit void fruit that he was able to break through to the 3rd level of the void initiation stage in one go. So the spirit void fruit was completely useless to him now. But, Big Brother Zhang seems to have not consumed this spirit void fruit before. At the same time that Duan Lingtian was greatly disappointed, he noticed the burning gaze Zhang Shouyang looked at the spirit void fruit with, and that was the gaze of wishing for nothing more than to take it for himself. But in next to no time, Duan Lingtian saw Zhang Shouyang withdraw his gaze. At the same time, a clear voice transmission sounded out by his ears. Brother Lingtian, once I obtain this spirit fruit, I'll pass it to you. With the assistance of this spirit fruit, your cultivation will surely advance a step further. It was precisely the voice transmission of Zhang Shouyang. Duan Lingtian was stunned, completely and utterly stunned. A moment ago, he'd perceived that Zhang Shouyang hadn't consumed the spirit void fruit. In the next moment, Zhang Shouyang wanted to give the spirit void fruit to him. For a time, Duan Lingtian felt his heart was filled with warmth. Big Brother Zhang is indeed a friend worthy of building a deep friendship with. Duan Lingtian sighed in his heart. But Duan Lingtian had instead intentionally restrained his feelings now, and he said via voice transmission, Big Brother Zhang, if I'm not wrong, you ought to have not consumed this spirit fruit in the past, right? Yes. Zhang Shouyang didn't deny it and said directly via voice transmission, I've consumed a spirit fruit used by void initiation stage martial artists in the past, but it wasn't this spirit fruit. Then why are you giving it to me? If you consume it yourself, you'll probably be able to break through to the 9th level of the void initiation stage within a short period of time, right? Duan Lingtian asked. This is my promise to you. Zhang Shouyang's reply was extremely simple and direct, and it caused the warmth in Duan Lingtian's heart to grow even more deeper. In the end, Duan Lingtian decided to stop teasing Zhang Shouyang. Big Brother Zhang, I'm afraid you can't achieve your wish. Huh, Zhang Shouyang was stunned. I've also consumed a spirit fruit used by void initiation stage martial artists in the past, but my luck was better than you and the spirit fruit I consumed was exactly this spirit fruit. Duan Lingtian spoke via voice transmission. At the same time, the Zhang clan's patriarch said, Yang, this is a spirit void fruit, and it's able to increase the cultivation of a void initiation stage martial artist to a certain extent. After you consume this spirit fruit, you ought to be able to break through to the 9th level of the void initiation stage in a short period of time. Now, I intend to give this spirit fruit to you. I hope that you can bring honor to my Zhang clan and the Darken dynasty in the dynasty martial competition and even the martial competition of the 10 dynasties. In the end, the Zhang clan's patriarch passed out the spirit void fruit in his hand. Father, don't worry, I surely won't let everyone down. Zhang Shouyang took a deep breath before slowly stretching out his hand with the intention of receiving the spirit void fruit. At this moment, his feelings were extremely complicated. He originally thought that he had to give away this spirit fruit to Duan Lingtian, yet never imagined that Duan Lingtian had actually consumed this type of spirit fruit in the past. He had a feeling of recovering something that was lost. Wait, but, right when Zhang Shouyang was about to receive the spirit void fruit, a figure flashed out to stop Zhang Shouyang. The person that stopped Zhang Shouyang was none other than the wife of the patriarch. Second mother. Zhang Shouyang frowned as his expression sank slightly. Although he guessed that this second mother of his wouldn't be willing to allow him to obtain the spirit void fruit, he never expected she would be so direct. Now his father had already made his decision known, yet she still wanted to stop him. This scene caused Duan Lingtian to be unable to help but be stunned as well. This hateful woman wouldn't be thinking of fighting for the spirit void fruit for her son even at this moment, right? Duan Lingtian's brows raised, and he didn't look favorably upon the woman. Presently, the patriarch's expression was extremely unsightly as well. His wife had actually not given him face in the presence of an outsider. For a time, slight rage arose deep within his gaze. "What are you doing?" The patriarch's tone was extremely low and heavy. His words were obviously spoken to the woman, his wife. "I feel this spirit void fruit shouldn't be given to him, and it should instead be given to Yuan." The woman turned around to look at the patriarch and spoke directly. "HMPH." The Zhang clan patriarch grunted coldly. "I know you're Yuan's biological mother, so you're biased towards him at every corner, but this matter is related to our Zhang clan and related to our darkened dynasty. How can I allow a woman like you to act rashly? I'm thinking for our Zhang clan." The woman spoke word by word. "I know his natural talent is shocking and has already broke through to the 8th level of the void initiation stage now, and it isn't difficult for him to become eminent in the dynasty martial competition, but it's precisely because of this that I feel the spirit void fruit shouldn't be given to him and should instead be given to Yuan." The patriarch frowned and looked at the woman as he wanted to know why the woman said this, whereas, Duan Lingtian and Zhang Shouyang sized the woman up with interest as they wanted to know what she could say to convince the patriarch. 644 Chapter 645, Unreasonable Request. Presently, amongst the younger generation of our Zhang clan, his strength is the strongest, and I don't deny this. But beneath him, the strongest is Yuan. You ought to not deny this, right? The middle-aged woman looked at her husband, the patriarch of the Zhang clan, and asked. The patriarch nodded. During the dynasty martial competition this time, it isn't difficult for him to advance and obtain the qualification to participate in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties, but Yuan is different. Unless Yuan is able to consume this spirit void fruit and break through to the 7th level of the void initiation stage, otherwise, it'll be impossible for him to advance in the dynasty martial competition and obtain the qualification to participate in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties. The woman spoke directly without the slightest fear. And then, the patriarch asked, "Then I feel that giving the spirit void fruit to him is truly a waste. Only because no matter if he consumes the spirit void fruit or not, he'll be able to advance in the dynasty martial competition and obtain the qualification to participate in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties." The woman continued, "On the other hand, if Yuan doesn't obtain this spirit void fruit, then it would be utterly impossible for him to obtain the qualification to participate in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties. In my opinion, using a spirit void fruit to exchange a position for our Zhang clan to advance to the martial competition of the 10 dynasties is a good thing." The corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth curled into a ridiculing smile. For the sake of her biological son, this hateful woman is truly going through great pains to actually speak these kind of words. As far as Duan Lingtian was concerned, the words this hateful woman spoke was bullshit. Even if the spirit voice fruit was given to her biological son and he obtained the qualification to participate in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties, wouldn't he still be at the bottom? At that time when the martial competition of the 10 dynasties begins, he would probably be eliminated in the first round. On the other hand, if the spirit void fruit was given to Zhang Shouyang, he would even have the chance to break through to the void interpretation stage before the martial competition of the 10 dynasties. But, the void interpretation stage isn't so easy to break through to. I wonder what level of earth concept Big Brother Zhang has comprehended. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. For the beginning until the end, Zhang Shouyang, who was beside Duan Lingtian, had a calm expression, as if everything that happened before him was unrelated to him. In next to no time, the patriarch spoke, and what he spoke of was undoubtedly what Duan Lingtian had thought in his heart. This spirit void fruit is enough to affect Yang's performance in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties. If he's able to break through to the void interpretation stage before the martial competition of the 10 dynasties, then he'll even have the chance to fight for the first rank in the competition. Patriarch Zhang's voice resounded out clearly. Number 1 in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties. What an honor would that be? Even you said, even if he's able to break through to the 9th level of the void initiation stage in a short period of time after consuming this spirit void fruit, but is the void interpretation stage so easily attained? Even if his origin energy advanced to fulfill the conditions during the remaining 1 year from the martial competition of the 10 dynasties, but what about his comprehension and concept? The woman spoke with certainty and didn't fall into a disadvantaged position. The void interpretation stage isn't so easy to comprehend. Some void initiation stage martial artists remain at the 9th level of the void initiation stage for their entire lives because they were unable to comprehend void initiation stage concept. Void initiation stage concept was also called intermediate concept, and it surpassed the elementary concept that was ordinarily comprehended by void initiation stage martial artists. Above 9th level elementary concept was 1st level intermediate concept, and it required extremely high comprehension ability to comprehend. HMPH. The Zhang clan patriarch grunted coldly. Then you're confident that after Yuan consumes the spirit void fruit, he'll surely be able to advance in the dynasty martial competition and obtain the qualification to participate in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties to bring honor to our Zhang clan. If you're confident, then so what if I give this spirit void fruit to Yuan? When the patriarch spoke up to hear, a smile of victory bloomed on the woman's face, and she glanced at Zhang Shouyang with slight complacency. But the smile on her face quickly froze. Because, the Zhang clan's patriarch hadn't finished speaking. But after Yuan consumed the spirit void fruit, if he's unable to obtain the qualification to participate in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties, then I'll punish him by making him be unable to inherit the position as the next patriarch of the Zhang clan for his entire lifetime. The following words of the Zhang clan patriarch were spoke resolutely, and it caused the woman and Zhang Shouyang who stood by her side to have a grim expression. They never imagined that the patriarch would speak these words. The position of the next Zhang clan patriarch. If nothing unexpected occurred, then it would surely be Zhang Shouyang. Because Zhang Shouyang had made it clear long ago that he had no interest in being the next patriarch of the Zhang clan. Otherwise, Zhang Shouyang would have already become the inheritor of the position of patriarch in the Zhang clan. It could be said the Zhang Shouyang would fight with Zhang Shouyang for the position of patriarch. Mother, I don't want that spirit void fruit anymore, I don't want it. Zhang Shouyang was in panic, and he hurriedly sent a voice transmission into the ears of the woman. What a joke! Because of his big brother Zhang Shouyang being uninterested towards it, although who would inherit it wasn't officially announced, everyone knew that the position of the next Zhang clan patriarch surely belonged to him. Now because of a spirit void fruit, he would even possibly lose the opportunity to inherit position of patriarch, and he was naturally unwilling. He was unwilling to use the position of Zhang clan patriarch as a wager. Because even if he consumed the spirit void fruit and broke through to the 7th level of the void initiation stage before the dynasty martial competition, he didn't have sufficient certainty to seize the qualification to participate in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties. On the other side, the woman's expression went completely dark. She'd never imagined that her own husband would actually use this to threaten her and her son. She gritted her teeth and couldn't shake her feeling of unwillingness. I think that the ownership of the spirit void fruit ought to be decided by vote of all the elders of our Zhang clan. The woman turned the topic and said in a low voice, no matter if it's him who consumes the spirit soul fruit or Yuan, it's all a gamble, so why should he take priority? Why should he? The woman's words were extremely clear. She wanted to ask all the Zhang clan elders to vote and decide on it. Enough. When the patriarch saw his wife being so presumptuous, he finally couldn't resist any longer and shouted out angrily with a grim expression, and it shocked the woman to the point of shutting up. But right at this moment, Zhang Shouyang, who'd kept quiet from the beginning, spoke. Father, since second mother is interested in asking the various elders to decide by vote about the ownership of the spirit void fruit, then we'll allow the elders to vote. Zhang Shouyang had suddenly spoke out with such words. For a time, not only was the Zhang clan patriarch stunned, even the woman and Zhang Shouyang were stunned. They never imagined that Zhang Shouyang would agree. Big brother Zhang, Duan Lingtian was dumbstruck. The situation before my eyes is obviously beneficial to big brother Zhang, yet why did he start digging his own grave? Duan Lingtian was unable to wrap his head around it. As expected of our Zhang clan's eldest young master, you have courage, I'll order people to invite the elders over. The woman's face bloomed into a smile of victory, and her eyes flickered with a bright light as she walked out of the audience hall with large strides to instruct the subordinates that were guarding outside the audience hall. So long as all the Zhang clan elders were gathered together, she would have the certainty to make most of the elder side towards her son. After all, her son was the future patriarch of the Zhang clan. Under similar circumstances, she wasn't worried that her son would lose to Zhang Shouyang when all the Zhang clan elders voted. Yang, you, the patriarch frowned and had a puzzled expression. Duan Lingtian looked at Zhang Shouyang with a puzzled expression as well, and he asked. Big brother Zhang, if you didn't take the initiative to agree, the spirit void fruit would have already been yours. Doing this is truly unreasonable. Since this second mother of yours dared to put forward such a request, she surely has confidence in making the Zhang clan's elders side towards her son. Duan Lingtian couldn't help but be worried for Zhang Shouyang. The thing he couldn't wrap his head around the most was that Zhang Shouyang had actually taken the initiative to agree to the unreasonable request of the hateful woman. After all, under the rage of the Zhang clan patriarch, the hateful woman didn't dare speak anymore. The spirit void fruit was able to become the possession of Zhang Shouyang, yet at the critical moment, Zhang Shouyang seemed to have thrown out a rope to make himself tumble, and it truly caused others to be slightly speechless. Brother Lingtian, if I don't agree to me second mother's request, then even if she doesn't say anything further due to my father's rage, she wouldn't be really resigned. This time, I want her to completely and utterly give up. The depths of Zhang Shouyang's eyes flickered with strands of frightful cold lights as he spoke via voice transmission. Duan Lingtian was stunned, as he never expected that all of this was actually Zhang Shouyang's plan. Zhang Shouyang obviously had everything under control. Looks like big brother Zhang already possesses 100% certainty, then I'll wait and see while preparing to see a show. Duan Lingtian heaved a sigh of relief. It will be a nice show, it will absolutely not disappoint you. Zhang Shouyang replied. I anticipate it extremely. Duan Lingtian nodded. Along with the passage of time, the Zhang clan audience hall that originally contained 5 people had become completely bustling with noise and excitement. Not only did the group of elders that stayed in the Zhang clan come over, even the elders of the Zhang clan that were in charge of the various businesses under the Zhang clan at various places in the capital had returned as well. 37 elders were gathered together. Amongst them, almost half were middle-aged men, and almost all the others were old people. A few people even had white hair and eyebrows, and they'd obviously passed 100 years in age. However, because of their deep cultivations, all of them were full of spirit and energy. Patriarch, is there something important that you asked all of us to return for? In next to no time, a Zhang clan elder asked. When the Zhang clan patriarch heard this, he spoke of the entire sequence of events without holding back in the slightest. For a time, all the elders of the Zhang clan understood the reason why they were asked to return. In this way, there's only one spirit fruit, yet we have to select either eldest young master or second young master to consume it. The gazes of the group of elders started to move up and down as they sized up Zhang Shouyang and Zhang Shouyuan. It was as if they were choosing goods, and it caused Duan Lingtian who stood at the side to be speechless. But, Zhang Shouyang instead had an expressionless face as if he utterly didn't take what was happening before him seriously, and he was composed to a shocking degree. I think that the probability the second young master obtains the qualifications to participate in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties is slightly greater than eldest young master breaking through to the void interpretation stage before the martial competition, said one of the elders. 645 Chapter 646, 6th level of the void initiation stage. As soon as the middle-aged elder said this, it was like a stone tossed at the lake that caused 1,000 ripples. I feel this way as well. I agree with this. Most of the remaining elders nodded in agreement. As far as they were concerned, once he consumed the spirit void fruit, it was practically assured that the second young master, Zhang Shouyuan's, cultivation would break through to the 7th level of the void initiation stage, and a 7th level void initiation stage martial artist had a great chance in becoming eminent in the dynasty martial competition and obtaining the qualification to participate in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties. On the other hand, the situation of the eldest young master, Zhang Shouyang, was slightly difficult. The void interpretation stage was already not a problem that relied purely on the aspect of origin energy, and the comprehension of concept was more important. If one's concept wasn't comprehended to the required level, then even if one's origin energy is any stronger, one would be unable to break through to the void interpretation stage. Besides one's origin energy having to satisfy the conditions, it was more important to first comprehend void interpretation concept or intermediate concept to break through to the void interpretation stage. This was something that was usually the most difficult. Under such a comparison and coupled with the second young master, Zhang Shouyuan, being the future patriarch of the Zhang clan, the group of elders had a decision in their hearts. They'd sided towards the second young master, Zhang Shouyuan. Zhang Shouyuan revealed a smile on his face, yet he acted modest. Elders, you're all too kind. HMPH. Right at this moment, a cold snort sounded out abruptly, and it disturbed the clamorous atmosphere at the scene. Instantly, the atmosphere became silent, perfectly silent. The gazes of everyone descended onto the person that snorted coldly. The person that emitted the cold snort was none other than Zhang Shouyang, who was by Duan Lingtian's side. For a time, many Zhang clan elders frowned and were slightly displeased. The eldest young master has left the clan for a period of time, yet he's more and more ignorant of his manners. Some elders that were aged past 100 spoke indifferently, and their tone contained an intention to blame. On the other side, when the patriarch's wife and Zhang Shouyuan saw this scene, the smile on their faces became even more brilliant, and both of them felt that Zhang Shouyang was courting death. With this scene Zhang Shouyang caused, it would be strange if any elder were to vote for him. Yang. When he saw Zhang Shouyang enrage many elders, the patriarch frowned and was slightly puzzled. According to his understanding of this eldest son of his, Zhang Shouyang wasn't a rash person. Elders. Zhang Shouyang glanced indifferently at the group of Zhang clan elders, and he spoke unhurriedly. Looks like all of you aren't confident in my ability to break through to the void interpretation stage before the martial competition of the 10 dynasties after I consume the spirit void fruit. Or perhaps, it's time that I ought to give all of you some confidence. As Zhang Shouyang finished speaking, he twisted the topic. Practically the instant he finished speaking. Whoosh. Strands of material earth and yellow energy that were clearly visible coiled around the surroundings of Zhang Shouyang's body, and it emitted traces of vast aura. At the same time, the energy of the heaven and earth roiled above him before finally converging into 9 ancient horned dragon silhouettes. The strength of 9 ancient horned dragons. Ninth level elementary earth concept. Instantly, a white-browed elder was the first to react, and he couldn't help but exclaim in shock. Subsequently, more and more people reacted to what this meant, and amongst them included Duan Lingtian. 9th level elementary earth force. Duan Lingtian stared fixedly at Zhang Shouyang, and he couldn't help but gasp. Now he finally understood Zhang Shouyang's intentions. So it turned out that Zhang Shouyang had always been waiting for this moment to arrive. He wanted to use his strength to prove himself. If he were to consume the spirit void fruit, he would surely be able to smoothly break through to the void interpretation stage before the martial competition of the 10 dynasties. Big Brother Zhang's 9th level elementary earth force seems to have been comprehended for some time. It obviously possesses the momentum of approaching intermediate earth concept. Duan Lingtian, who'd inherited the rebirth martial emperor's memories, had an outstanding discerning gaze, and he'd noticed with a single glance that Zhang Shouyang's 9th level elementary concept wasn't simple. Good. The patriarch was stunned for a moment before shouting out explosively, and his face was covered in excitement. My Zhang clan's good fortune. My Zhang clan's good fortune. With the eldest young master present, why would our Zhang clan worry about being unable to rise in the world? In next to no time, many Zhang clan elders turned to flatter Zhang Shouyang. Some of these Zhang clan elders had even sided towards Zhang Shouyuan earlier, yet at this moment, they seemed like grass atop a wall that swayed along with the wind. They never imagined earlier that not only had Zhang Shouyang's cultivation stepped into the 8th level of the void initiation stage, he'd actually comprehended 9th level elementary earth concept. Looks like our Zhang clan will be able to seek the limelight on the stage that is the martial competition of the 10 dynasties this time. An elder with white hairs and brows couldn't refrain from speaking with pleasant surprise. The patriarch's wife and Zhang Shouyuan stood stunned on the spot nearby. The smile on their faces had completely frozen since long ago, and there seemed to be slight disbelief and shock mixed within the depths of their eyes. Never had they imagined that not only was Zhang Shouyang's natural talent high, even his comprehension ability was so heaven-defying. He'd actually comprehended 9th level elementary earth concept. Elders, you can vote now, decide who ought to consume this spirit void fruit. The voice of the patriarch sounded out in a timely manner. At this moment, the outcome was already without the slightest suspense. After Zhang Shouyang, the Zhang clan's eldest young master revealed his 9th level elementary earth concept. He'd obtained the support of all the Zhang clan elders. Everyone hoped that he consumed the spirit void fruit and broke through to the void interpretation stage before the martial competition of the 10 dynasties and strive to obtain extremely great honor for the Zhang clan at the martial competition of the 10 dynasties. Big Brother Zhang, congratulations. When he saw Zhang Shouyang obtain the spirit void fruit, Duan Lingtian congratulated via voice transmission. Brother Lingtian, I'm truly sorry for making you worry. Zhang Shouyang apologized. There's no harm done, it's fine as long as you obtain the spirit void fruit. Duan Lingtian shook his head and then glanced at the night sky that had completely dimmed and said, it's already getting late, I ought to leave as well, we'll meet again when the dynasty martial competition begins. Zhang Shouyang sent Duan Lingtian out as he said with a smile, perhaps we don't have to wait until the dynasty martial competition, maybe I'll be able to find the ageless root you need in another few days, or perhaps I'll have some spirit fruits used by void initiation stage martial artists. That couldn't be any better. At the Zhang clan estate's entrance, Duan Lingtian revealed a brilliant smile before bidding his farewells once more and leaving. When he saw Duan Lingtian's figure vanish before his eyes, Zhang Shouyang turned around and returned to the estate. At another side of the Zhang clan estate. You three find a good time and make it clean, I want him to vanish from the world, and you must not leave behind any traces. The middle-aged woman spoke with a low voice to the three middle-aged men in black clothes before her. Yes, madam, the three black-clothed middle-aged men nodded respectfully, and their eyes flickered with frightful cold lights. Go. Along with the middle-aged woman waving her hand, the figures of the three black-clothed middle-aged men flashed out to fade into the night sky, and they were like three specters in the night sky. Mother. Before long, a young man appeared by the woman's side, and his eyes flickered with cold lights. Are the three of them able to do it? Duan Lingtian is extremely strange. After I was affected by his demonic technique the other day, I didn't feel anything being off from the beginning until the end. Their strengths are even above my own, killing Duan Lingtian ought to not be difficult. The middle-aged woman was very confident of the three black-clothed middle-aged men she sent out. The young man heaved a sigh of relief when he heard this, yet the cold lights in his eyes didn't reduce. If Duan Lingtian dies, then my anger would be vented, but how regretful of that spirit void fruit. Zhang Shouyang was allowed to obtain it. With Zhang Shouyang's natural talent and comprehension ability, it ought to not be difficult for him to break through to the void interpretation stage before the martial competition of the 10 dynasties after he consumed the spirit void fruit. Fortunately, he has no intention of taking the position of patriarch, otherwise, he would be a strong adversary of yours. The woman heaved a sigh of relief as well. At the other side, after Duan Lingtian arrived nearby the estate that the Darkstone Empire had bought in the Darken Dynasty, he noticed 3 people watching him from the shadows. But when he walked into the Darkstone estate, the 3 people didn't follow after him. Who would they be? After Duan Lingtian returned to the Darkstone estate in his own courtyard, he couldn't help but fall into deep thought. Logically speaking, after I arrived at the Darken Dynasty's capital, I haven't offended anyone. If I were to really talk about someone who has enmity with me, then it would only be that Zhang clan's second young master, Zhang Shouyang, and the patriarch's wife. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian guessed it was Zhang Shouyang and the patriarch's wife, and he became more and more sure of it. I'll disregard them. At any rate, those 3 fellows ought to not be so daring as to trespass into the Darkstone estate. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian didn't continue thinking before sitting cross-legged on the bed, and then he closed his eyes and continued cultivating. 9 Dragons War Sovereign Technique, Earth Dragon Form. A concept fragment and a mid-grade origin stone appeared out of thin air in Duan Lingtian's hand. The concept fragment was precisely the 5th level wind concept fragment he'd obtained at the Sword Monarch's treasure that day, and it was able to assist him in comprehending wind concept until he comprehended 5th level advanced wind concept. During this period of time, his comprehension of wind concept would advance by leaps and bounds because of this concept fragment. Time swiftly flowed by. In the blink of an eye, another 3 months had passed, and only a month remained until the Dynasty Martial competition now. I've finally broken through. When Duan Lingtian woke up once more, his face was filled with excited joy. There seemed to be strands of origin energy leaping about around him, and in the end, they completely fused into his body. During this period of time, 8 ancient horned dragon silhouettes gradually dispersed above him. 6th level of the Void Initiation stage. Duan Lingtian had finally broken through. I'll go out and take a walk. Cultivating for an entire 3 months had almost suffocated Duan Lingtian, and after 3 months of time, Duan Lingtian had left the Darkstone estate once again. They're still here. Duan Lingtian had only just left the Darkstone estate when he noticed the 3 people that were concealed in the shadows. 646 Chapter 647, 3 Corpses. Relying on his acute spiritual force, Duan Lingtian could determine that these three people were the three people that were following him 3 months ago, and they seemed to be sent over by the Zhang clan patriarch's wife and son. As for their objective, Duan Lingtian was vaguely able to guess that they ought to be here to take his life. Since all of you are so patient and have waited for 3 months, then I'll play with you. Duan Lingtian stood outside the Darkstone estate, and the corners of his mouth curled into an evil smile. Of course, the three people that were concealed in the shadows were bound to be unable to see Duan Lingtian's current smile. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian acted as if nothing happened and distanced himself from the Darkstone estate. Duan Lingtian could clearly notice that after he left, those three people followed behind him like shadows, and it was as if they were 3 strands of cancer. Not long after, Duan Lingtian just happened to pass through a remote and empty alley. Besides Duan Lingtian, not a single other person could be seen at either side of the alley. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Right at this moment, 3 ear-piercing howls of the wind swept out at almost the exact same instant, and they charged towards Duan Lingtian. In the blink of an eye, Duan Lingtian was surrounded by 3 middle-aged men in black clothes, and it was as if a heaven-encompassing net had tightly trapped him. Duan Lingtian had a carefree expression when faced with the sudden arrival of the 3 people. The scene before his eyes was within his expectations. If I'm not wrong, all of you ought to have been sent over by the Zhang clan's patriarch's wife and the second young master, right? Duan Lingtian glanced indifferently at the black-clothed middle-aged men and spoke slowly. The 3 black-clothed middle-aged men remained unchanged in expression, and it was as if they'd utterly not heard Duan Lingtian's words. But Duan Lingtian, who had an acute observation ability, was still able to notice a trace of surprise in the depths of their eyes. It really is them. Now Duan Lingtian had completely confirmed it. Kill. Suddenly, the middle-aged man that stood at Duan Lingtian's left side shouted out with a low voice. Practically the instant he finished speaking, he moved as if he'd transformed into a starving tiger that opened its blood mouth as it pounced towards Duan Lingtian. As for his other 2 companions, they'd attacked along with him. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. At the instant they made a move, 11 ancient horned dragon silhouettes appeared above each of them. At this moment, the 3 of them didn't utilize their spirit weapons or concept. In other words, their true cultivation was at the 8th level of the Void Initiation stage. The cultivation the 3 of them revealed wasn't the slightest bit surprising to Duan Lingtian. Because when he noticed these 3 people 3 months ago, Duan Lingtian had used his spiritual force to detect their cultivations. 3 8th level Void Initiation stage martial artists. At that time, Duan Lingtian's cultivation was only at the 5th level of the Void Initiation stage, and not to mention utilizing the quasi-royal grade spirit weapon, even if he used all his ability, it would still be difficult to kill them. Even if Duan Lingtian utilized his spiritual force that had attained the 7th level of the Void Initiation stage and executed the soul skill, 1000 illusions, it would still be impossible to do anything against them. So at that time, Duan Lingtian acted as if he didn't notice them. At any rate, the Darkstone estate was protected by King Yang, and he wasn't worried about the 3 of them entering in to kill him. Now, his cultivation had broken through to the 6th level of the Void Initiation stage, and his spiritual force had followed along this to break through to the 8th level of the Void Initiation stage. 3 8th level Void Initiation stage martial artists, and none of them are inscription masters. This was something Duan Lingtian had already confirmed 3 months ago. If there was an inscription master amongst the 3 of them, then when Duan Lingtian used his spiritual force to detect their cultivations 3 months ago, they'd have surely noticed it. Yet the 3 of them didn't notice Duan Lingtian's spiritual force in the slightest on that day, and Duan Lingtian could know from this that there wasn't an inscription master amongst them. When faced with the 3 8th level Void Initiation stage martial artists that approached menacingly, Duan Lingtian's eyes squinted as strands of dim lights started flickering within. 1000 illusion. In the next moment, Duan Lingtian's spiritual force instantly fused into the soul brand at the depths of his soul to execute the soul skill that belonged exclusively to him. An illusory space that was difficult to perceive was constructed by Duan Lingtian, and it swept out to envelop 10 meters around the area he was at. At the same time, the 3 8th level Void Initiation stage middle-aged men who had withdrew their spirit weapons and utilized their concept entered successively into the illusory space. In Duan Lingtian's field of vision, after the 3 people approached him, they instantly changed their targets and started fighting each other. Meanwhile, Duan Lingtian unhurriedly walked to the side of the remote alley and leisurely watched the 3 people fight to their heart's content. The battle between the three people was extremely tragic, and one of them was heavily injured by the joint attacks of the others after a short moment. Ah! A shrill cry sounded out, and the person that was heavily injured had been killed by the other two people. Duan Lingtian watched coldly from the side when the black-clothed middle-aged man fell into a pool of blood. Although he was complete strangers with the three people before him, since they wanted to kill him, he naturally wouldn't hold back. Karma would one day come to bite back. At the same time, the remaining two people started to battle each other. After half an hour, another person was killed. The last person was heavily injured and at the gate of death, and he used his spirit saber to support himself. Obviously, he wouldn't live for long. Clap 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 clap. When he saw this person wasn't a threat any longer, Duan Lingtian clapped as he dispersed the illusory space created by the soul skill, Thousand Illusion. At the same time, the black-clothed middle-aged man that was heavily injured and at death's door noticed that he'd left that mysterious place to return to the remote alley. With a glance, he noticed his two companions that were dead in a pool of blood, and he couldn't help but go pale. In next to no time, he noticed an extremely terrifying thing. The injuries on both his companions were extremely familiar to him. Subsequently, his gaze descended onto the spirit saber in his hand. Fresh blood was ceaselessly dripping from it. It was me. The middle-aged man's face went deathly pale as his pupils constricted, and his body started shivering. He was unwilling to believe that all this was real. Exactly, it was you. At the same time, an indifferent voice entered into the middle-aged man's ears in a timely manner, and it caused him to have an astonished expression. You, how can you? No, impossible. When the middle-aged man turned around, he saw Duan Lingtian, who stood at the side of the alley as if nothing had happened, and he couldn't help but be terrified to the point of ceaselessly shaking his head. As far as he was concerned, it was impossible for everything before his eyes to be real. He's obviously killed the young man twice earlier. But now, the young man was perfectly well, yet his two companions were dead instead. Nothing is impossible. Duan Lingtian glanced indifferently at the black-clothed middle-aged man, and seeming to have noticed the middle-aged man's disbelief, Duan Lingtian said slowly, "There are many things in this world that you're unable to understand, just like what happened earlier. Perhaps, you utterly don't know how you'd suddenly arrived at another place and don't know why I would appear once more after you killed me once. At the same time, you wouldn't have imagined that the two people you killed successively were both your companions." As Duan Lingtian spoke, every word of his seemed to transform into a sharp blade that ceaselessly penetrated through the middle-aged man's chest, and it caused the middle-aged man's body to tremble even more violently. Presently, in the eyes of the black-clothed middle-aged man, the violet-clothed young man who carried a light smile on his face was no different than a devil. "Devil, you're a devil. You're a devil. Devil, perhaps." The corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth curled into an indistinct evil smile. "Devil, I'll kill you." The middle-aged man struggled to charge towards Duan Lingtian and kill Duan Lingtian. But unfortunately, he'd only taken a step out when his body that lost the support of his spirit saber couldn't support itself any longer and crashed onto the ground. His injuries were too heavy. If you have another life, remember not to be the lackey of another, only by becoming one at the top would you be able to control your own fate. At the same time that Duan Lingtian spoke indifferently, the origin energy in his hand condensed into a 3-foot-long blade, and then his hand rose and fell to end the life of the black-clothed middle-aged man. "Since both of you want to play, then I'll accompany you." After Duan Lingtian dispersed the 3-foot-long blade on his hand that was condensed into form from origin energy, he swiftly turned around to look towards the direction of the Zhang clan estate, and his face was covered in a layer of ice. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian raised his hand to pull off the belt of one of the middle-aged men before tying the 3 corpses together. In the next moment, Duan Lingtian dragged the 3 corpses as he soared into the sky. Whoosh! Even though he was carrying 3 corpses, Duan Lingtian's movements were still extremely swift, and he seemed to have transformed into a gust of wind that quickly arrived before the Zhang clan estate's entrance. Young Master Lingtian. Duan Lingtian had just descended outside the Zhang clan estate's entrance when the Zhang clan guards outside had already bowed respectfully to Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian lightly smiled and nodded to these Zhang clan guards, and it caused them to feel as if they were bathing in the breeze of summer. Young Master Lingtian is truly amiable. As expected of the eldest young master's friend, he's neither arrogant nor conceited. The 3 Zhang clan guards whispered in discussion and they held Duan Lingtian in extremely his esteem. That's 3 corpses. In next to no time, a Zhang clan guard with a discerning gaze saw that Duan Lingtian was actually dragging along 3 corpses and had thrown them at the entrance of the Zhang clan estate. What does young Master Lingtian want to do? For a time, the Zhang clan guards went slightly pale and felt their scalps go numb. Wasn't the violet-clothed young man before them the friend of their young master? Bringing along corpses to pay a visit wasn't something a friend did, right? Do all of you know these 3 people? Duan Lingtian looked at the Zhang clan guards and lightly smiled as he asked. But at this moment, his smile was no different than the smile of a devil when it entered the eyes of these guards. However, they still couldn't refrain from moving their gazes onto the 3 corpses. After a short moment, their expressions turned to one of shock. Aren't they the guards by the patriarch's wife's side? It's them. I still remember when the madam was married over all those years ago, these 3 people were part of the madam's dowry. Some of the Zhang clan guards recognized these 3 corpses with a glance. They're all existences at the 8th level of the void initiation stage. I wonder who killed them. The relationship between Madam, second young master, and young master Lingtian seems, could it be? In next to no time, the Zhang clan guards looked at Duan Lingtian with a fearful expression. Although they didn't think that Duan Lingtian had the ability to kill 3 8th level void initiation stage martial artists, it might have been an expert backing Duan Lingtian that made a move to kill these 3 people. 647 Chapter 648, Denouncing Crimes. Are all of you willing to lend a hand and carry them to your Zhang clan's audience hall? Duan Lingtian looked at the Zhang clan guards and spoke slowly. The Zhang clan guards went pale in expression when they heard this, and all of them looked at each other, yet no one dared agree. Young Master Lingtian, don't make it difficult for us. In next to no time, a Zhang clan guard laughed bitterly. They're subordinates of the madam. You might not fear the madam, but we do. Yeah, the other Zhang clan guards nodded hurriedly. Duan Lingtian's brows raised and wasn't surprised, and he continued. Then go notify the eldest young master for me and ask him to head to the audience hall. This ought to not be a problem, right? This is not a problem. The Zhang clan guards hurriedly replied. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian took the lead to drag the 3 corpses into the Zhang clan estate, and he dragged out a long stain of blood that headed directly to the Zhang clan audience hall. Behind Duan Lingtian, a Zhang clan guard headed to another side in a fluster. The direction he headed was precisely the courtyard that the Zhang clan's eldest young master, Zhang Shouyang, stayed in. Young Master Lingtian. When Duan Lingtian arrived outside the Zhang clan audience hall, the servants that were guarding outside recognized Duan Lingtian. In next to no time, the expressions of these servants went pale. Because they saw the 3 corpses that Duan Lingtian dragged over. Bang! With a raise of his hand, Duan Lingtian directly tossed the 3 corpses at the entrance to the Zhang clan estate, and then stood quietly at the side without entering. Please notify your patriarch, the patriarch's wife, the second young master, and the various elders, and invite them over. Duan Lingtian looked at the servants that stood at the side with slightly pale expressions and spoke slowly. The servants hurriedly nodded when they heard this, and then left as if they were fleeing. When he saw the actions of the servants being so exaggerated, Duan Lingtian rubbed his nose shyly. Am I that terrifying? Not long after, a figure flashed over. Swoosh! The figure was exceedingly swift, and it stood at Duan Lingtian's side in the blink of an eye. Brother Lingtian, what's going on? The first to arrive was exactly Zhang Shouyang. Obviously, that Zhang clan guard that went to look for Zhang Shouyang didn't say much, so Zhang Shouyang didn't know what exactly had happened. Big brother Zhang. Duan Lingtian lightly smiled at Zhang Shouyang, and then he pointed at the 3 nearby corpses. Only now did Zhang Shouyang notice these 3 corpses and the stain of blood all along the way, and he couldn't help but frown. Who are they? In next to no time, Zhang Shouyang's gaze descended onto the 3 corpses. With a glance, he'd clearly seen the appearance of the 3 corpses. HMPH. Zhang Shouyang suddenly snorted coldly with a voice that was icy cold to the extreme. Obviously, he'd recognized the 3 corpses, and he said with a low voice. That bit H. Now, Zhang Shouyang naturally understood what had happened. It was surely that second mother of his had sent people to deal with Duan Lingtian, but they'd instead been killed by the experts of the Darkstone Empire. Now Duan Lingtian had brought over the 3 corpses to denounce crimes. Brother Lingtian, you can be at ease, I'll surely give you an explanation with regards to this matter. Zhang Shouyang spoke word by word as he promised. Duan Lingtian nodded, as he believed Zhang Shouyang. If it wasn't for him believing in Zhang Shouyang, he wouldn't just drag these 3 corpses to the Zhang clan like this. What's going on? In next to no time, the patriarch had arrived as well, and his expression was extremely unsightly as he looked at the blood stain all along the way. Father, look at them. Zhang Shouyang's expression was exceedingly gloomy as he pointed at the 3 corpses. The Zhang clan patriarch glanced over, and his expression went dark. Why is it them? Aren't they the guards by your second mother's side? How did they die here? They didn't die here, if I'm not wrong. They ought to have been sent by second mother to kill brother Lingtian, and the outcome was instead to be killed by the experts of the Darkstone Empire behind brother Lingtian. Zhang Shouyang spoke in a low voice. The patriarch's expression darkened when he heard this, and then he looked at Duan Lingtian as if he wanted to confirm it. Brother Lingtian, is it really like this? Patriarch Zhang, the 3 of them did indeed want to kill me, but unfortunately for them, they didn't succeed. Duan Lingtian nodded. The patriarch's brows knit tightly and his expression was ominous when he heard this, and then he looked at Zhang Shouyang and said, "Call your second mother over." Zhang Shouyang hadn't moved when Duan Lingtian had already spoke. "Don't worry Patriarch Zhang, I've already asked someone to invite the madam and second young master." Zhang Shouyang stopped moving when he heard this, whereas, the frown on the patriarch's face grew deeper. Originally, he was thinking that after he sent Zhang Shouyang away, he would properly discuss with Duan Lingtian and see if this matter could be played down. After all, this matter was related to his second wife. But now, he was obviously only able to use a voice transmission to persuade Duan Lingtian. "Brother Lingtian, my Zhang clan is in the wrong in this matter, how about this? For the sake of expression my Zhang clan's sincerity, so long as it's within the limits of my Zhang clan's ability, then my Zhang clan will not hesitate to fulfill your request." A voice transmission sounded out in Duan Lingtian's ears, and he was able to perceive that this was the voice transmission of the Zhang clan patriarch. "Patriarch Zhang." Duan Lingtian glanced at the Zhang clan patriarch and replied via voice transmission. "I and big brother Zhang are friends, and you're his father. Logically speaking, I ought to call you uncle, but with regards to today's matter, I hope that uncle can conduct public affairs without allowing private affairs to interfere and give me justice." The patriarch couldn't help but laugh bitterly when he heard this. He knew that Duan Lingtian wanted to fight for his pride. After a short moment, numerous figures arrived successively, and in a short moment, more than 10 Zhang clan elders had arrived. The patriarch was dumbstruck when he saw these Zhang clan elders. "Uncle, I asked someone to invite all the elders over." Duan Lingtian glanced deeply at the patriarch, causing the corners of the latter's mouth to twitch as he revealed traces of fear from his eyes. Only now did the Zhang clan's patriarch realize that not only did this violet-clothed young man possess extraordinary natural talent, even his thoughts were careful and meticulous to the point of causing his scalp to go slightly numb. Subsequently, he glanced at Zhang Shouyang. He knew that the reason Duan Lingtian dared devise this plan was undoubtedly because of the presence of this bargaining chip, his son. It couldn't be said, if his son didn't interfere in the matter today, Duan Lingtian would absolutely be unable to cause a stir. What a scheming person! As a patriarch of a clan, what hadn't he seen all throughout his lifetime? What sort of great storms had he not encountered? Yet now, before this violet-clothed young man, traces of fear arose from the bottom of his heart. How old is this little fellow? Possessing such terrifying scheming ability at such a young age. Once he grows up in the future, I'm afraid he'll be a devil incarnate. This was something that he didn't doubt in the slightest. "Patriarch, what's happened?" The 10 elders quickly noticed the 3 corpses that were bound together, and they couldn't help but frown as they asked the patriarch. The patriarch hadn't spoke yet when an elder couldn't refrain from exclaiming in shock. Aren't they the guards by the madam's side? It's really the madam's guards. Although the madam's guards came from the clan the madam came from, since they were part of the dowry when the madam married into our Zhang clan, then they're members of our Zhang clan, who is so audacious to even dare kill members of our Zhang clan. For a time, the group of Zhang clan elders were infuriated. Meanwhile, the patriarch's wife and the second young master arrived late. When they saw the 3 black-clothed middle-aged men that lay on the ground, their expressions darkened. "Madam, if I'm not wrong, they ought to be the guard by your side, right?" In next to no time, a Zhang clan elder asked the patriarch's wife. The patriarch's wife's face was unsightly, yet she still nodded. This was something that she couldn't deny. Don't worry madam, no matter who killed you guards, our Zhang clan will absolutely not let take it lying down. Some Zhang clan elders guaranteed to the patriarch's wife, and this caused her to feel afraid of being found out. Elders, all of you don't know the sequence of events, so it's best if you don't impatiently show your loyalty. Right at this moment, Zhang Shouyang spoke with a tone filled with ridicule. Eldest young master, what do you mean? Instantly, those Zhang clan elders were bewildered. Brother Lingtian, you tell them. Zhang Shouyang looked at Duan Lingtian and nodded. Feel free to speak directly, and there's no need for any scruples. Duan Lingtian nodded and spoke slowly. These 3 people were killed by the experts of my Darkstone Empire. The reason was that they'd laid an ambush for an entire 3 months outside the estate we lived in, and they directly struck a killing blow towards me once I left the estate today. Fortunately, I had an expert protecting me. Otherwise, I'd already be dead. As Duan Lingtian finished speaking, and then he glanced deeply at the patriarch's wife and second young master that had unsightly expressions. Since arriving at the Darkened Dynasty's capital, I haven't offended anyone. The only people who have had conflict with me are the patriarch's wife and second young master. So, I brought these 3 corpses over to the Zhang clan estate. The facts prove that I wasn't wrong. These people were precisely subordinates of the patriarch's wife. Duan Lingtian finished with a single breath, whereas the group of Zhang clan elders looked at each other and were all speechless. Madam, is what he said true? In next to no time, a Zhang clan elder over the age of 100 that had white hair and white brows asked the patriarch's wife in a low voice. The patriarch's wife chose to keep silent, and she'd obviously tacitly admitted it. Elders, I hope that all of you cannot let private matters interfere with public duty today. Brother Lingtian is my friend, and I hope that all of you can give him justice. Otherwise, I, Zhang Shouyang, will leave the Zhang clan from this moment forwards. Zhang Shouyang spoke with a resolute tone. Leave the Zhang clan. As soon as Zhang Shouyang said this, everyone present including Duan Lingtian was stunned. Big brother Zhang, Duan Lingtian looked at Zhang Shouyang as dense warmth arose in his heart. On the other side, the expressions of the patriarch's wife and second young master went pale. They originally didn't take the matter before them seriously. After all, no matter what, Duan Lingtian was just an outsider. 648 Chapter 649, Ageless Root. As far as they were concerned, this was the Zhang clan. Not to mention the Zhang clan's patriarch was either their husband or father. It was even impossible for all the Zhang clan elders to side towards an outsider like Duan Lingtian. But now, Zhang Shouyang sticking his foot into the matter and his words that threatened everyone in the Zhang clan caused them to notice danger. The Zhang clan elders recovered from their shock and all of their expressions darkened. Only the Zhang clan's patriarch had a helpless and bitter smile on his face, and he seemed to have realized since long ago that Zhang Shouyang would do this. In next to no time, the group of Zhang clan elders looked at each other, and the atmosphere at the scene became silent. Duan Lingtian knew clearly that the group of Zhang clan elders were probably communicating via voice transmission now. Not long after, they would have an outcome. With Big Brother Zhang's natural talent and strength, it's exceedingly easy for him to advance from the dynasty martial competition, and it's even to the extent that Big Brother Zhang will most probably be able to break through to the void interpretation stage before the martial competition of the 10 dynasties. A young genius at the void interpretation stage was sufficient to become eminent in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties and crush everyone. If a young genius like this was able to obtain an extremely great honor in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties, then as the power that he's from, the Zhang clan would surely be able to obtain numerous benefits. So, at this moment, it's impossible for the Zhang clan to allow Big Brother Zhang to leave. This was something that Duan Lingtian was extremely sure of. The facts proved that Duan Lingtian's thoughts were entirely correct. The group of Zhang clan elders had quickly come to a common view, to follow Zhang Shouyang's wishes and punish the culprit. Eldest young master. Amongst the group of Zhang clan elders, the white-haired and white-browed elder with the highest prestige slowly said, although this matter is related to the madam and second young master, but as the saying goes, all men are equal in the eyes of the law, so we naturally can't be partial. However, in consideration of this little brother being completely unharmed and the 3 people that attacked him are already dead. According to our Zhang clan's rules, the crime of the madam and second young master doesn't warrant death. It doesn't warrant death, but it ought to be sufficient to cripple their cultivation, right? Zhang Shouyang spoke directly. Cripple their cultivation. As soon as Zhang Shouyang finished speaking, the atmosphere at the scene became heavy. On Cloud Continent, where the martial Tao prevailed and the strong were respected, to most martial artists, their cultivation was much more important than their lives. If they didn't have their cultivation, then living would be worse than death. On the other side, when the Zhang clan patriarch's wife and second young master heard Zhang Shouyang, their countenance went pale. Cripple our cultivation? Mother, I don't want my cultivation to be crippled. The second young master shuddered in terror, and he was almost in tears as he spoke. Yuan, don't worry, no one can cripple your cultivation. The patriarch's wife took a deep breath and took a step forward. Then she looked at Zhang Shouyang and said with a low voice, without my command, it's impossible for anyone else to order about the guards by my side, so, this matter is unrelated to Yuan. Zhang Shouyang said indifferently, if it's unrelated, then it is unrelated, but your cultivation must be crippled to give my brother Ling Tian an explanation. HMPH. The patriarch's wife snorted coldly, and had an expression as if she placed herself at the mercy of the Zhang clan. Yet her eyes were still filled with killing intent as they stared fixedly at the nearby Duan Ling Tian. Duan Ling Tian's face sank when he felt the killing intent of the patriarch's wife. It has already come to this, yet this hateful woman is still so impervious. She truly deserves death. Do it. The Zhang clan patriarch sighed when he saw the group of elders looking over, and he waved his hand as he spoke. Enforcement elder. The white-browed and white-haired elder looked at an old man in green clothes and spoke slowly. The green-clothed old man was precisely the Zhang clan's enforcement elder. Madam, I'm sorry. The enforcement elder took a deep breath before walking slowly towards the patriarch's wife. Duan Ling Tian watched all this coldly from the sidelines. When the enforcement elder arrived by the patriarch's wife's side and slowly raised his hand. Don't touch my mother. An explosively shout suddenly resounded out. It was Zhang Shouyang who was unable to endure watching, and his figure flashed out to block before the patriarch's wife and blocking the enforcement elder. Second young master. When the enforcement elder saw Zhang Shouyang interfering, he couldn't help but laugh bitterly and slowly put down his hand. FK off. Otherwise, you'll be crippled as well. Zhang Shouyang's eyes narrowed as a cold light flashed within it, and he shouted with a deep voice. When Zhang Shouyang heard Zhang Shouyang's grim shout, his face couldn't help but go ominous, and his body started trembling. You, Zhang Shouyang, I'm your blood-related younger brother. Blood-related younger brother? Zhang Shouyang sneered. Now you admit that you're my younger brother. In the past, I could endure it when you made things difficult for me, and I could refrain from fussing about it with you, but today, you mother and son have tried to do harm to my friend, and I absolutely will not stand idly by. Zhang Shouyang's words were spoken resolutely, terrifying Zhang Shouyang to the point his face went ghastly pale, and his body trembled ceaselessly without any signs of stopping. Yuan, move aside. The patriarch's wife spoke with a low voice. Father. Zhang Shouyang looked unwillingly at his father, the patriarch of the Zhang clan. But unfortunately, the Zhang clan's patriarch himself was in a difficult position with no way to back down as well. He was extremely clear about the character of his eldest son. The words spoken by his eldest son were like poured water, and it was difficult to take back. Today, if he is unable to give his eldest son an explanation, then he didn't doubt in the slightest that his eldest son would leave the Zhang clan. Yuan, listen to you mother. The Zhang clan patriarch shook his head as he spoke to Zhang Shouyang. Second young master. The enforcement elder looked at Zhang Shouyang and sighed as his hand rose once more. Zhang Shouyang. But Zhang Shouyang still didn't move aside, and he instead looked at Zhang Shouyang and said in a low voice, I know you want to stand up for your friend today, how about this? I'll use a thing as exchange. So long as you let my mother off, I'll give that thing to you. Zhang Shouyang's words caused most people present to be unable to refrain from being stunned. Could the matter of today be turned back with a single thing? I'm not interested. As expected, Zhang Shouyang glanced at Zhang Shouyang with disdain and spoke indifferently. Are you sure you aren't interested in it? Zhang Shouyang took a deep breath as he slowly raised his hand. If I'm not wrong, you've already been looking for this thing since a few months ago. Practically at the instant Zhang Shouyang finished speaking, an item had appeared in his hand. This was a strange thing that looked like a medicinal material. Most importantly, this medicinal material looked like a root of an old tree, extremely ordinary and no value could be perceived from it. The group of Zhang clan elders originally thought that Zhang Shouyang would take out some treasure, yet they never expected that it would be such an inconspicuous thing, and they couldn't help but shake their heads. All of them felt that Zhang Shouyang would be unable to save his mother. However, Zhang Shouyang's originally calm face was completely stunned when he saw the medicinal material in Zhang Shouyuan's hand. Why does this thing look so familiar? In next to no time, Zhang Shouyuan reacted to where he had seen it, and he looked at Duan Lingtian who was beside him. Presently, Duan Lingtian stood there dumbstruck, and he stared blankly at the thing in Zhang Shouyuan's hand. Ageless root. Duan Lingtian's feelings now were difficult to describe and exceedingly excited. Never had he imagined that the thing he yearned for day and night would appear in the hands of Zhang Shouyuan. Brother Lingtian. Meanwhile, an exceedingly clear voice transmission entered into Duan Lingtian's ears, and it was precisely the voice of Zhang Shouyang. Do you want to continue making my second mother pay for her actions, or do you want this medicinal material? Now, Zhang Shouyang had recalled it. The thing in Zhang Shouyuan's hand was precisely the ageless root that Duan Lingtian had asked him to search for. I want the medicinal material. Duan Lingtian didn't hesitate in the slightest and spoke directly. What a joke! Even though he hated the Zhang clan patriarch's wife extremely, before the ageless root, that little bit of enmity between him and the patriarch's wife was nothing. The ageless root was one of the two secondary medicinal catalysts of the rebirth pill. The other type of secondary medicinal catalyst, the phoenix wing herb, had already been obtained by Duan Lingtian. Even if the most important main medicinal catalyst of the rebirth pill, the scarlet phoenix blood, had been obtained by Duan Lingtian long ago. As for the other medicinal materials, they were all extremely ordinary, and Duan Lingtian had prepared them long ago. Presently, Duan Lingtian could be said to have everything but a crucial item ready. So long as he obtained the ageless root, he would be able to directly refine the rebirth pill. The rebirth pill was an extremely overbearing medicinal pill that could allow one's cultivation to advance by leaps and bounds. The greatness of one's improvement in cultivation was shocking. I've already broken through to the 6th level of the void initiation stage now. If I'm able to consume the rebirth pill, my cultivation is probably able to directly break through to the 9th level of the void initiation stage in a short amount of time. This was something that Duan Lingtian didn't doubt in the slightest. The medicinal strength of the rebirth pill was recorded in detail within the memories of the rebirth martial emperor. After all, when the medicinal strength of the rebirth pill was completely consumed, it was even able to allow the rebirth martial emperor who'd already attained the martial emperor stage all those years ago to directly break through a few levels. At the martial emperor stage, the difference between every level was undoubtedly like a great chasm. The origin energy of merely a single level in difference would probably surpass the difference between Duan Lingtian's current origin energy and the origin energy of an expert at the first level of the martial monarch stage. I understand. After he obtained Duan Lingtian's reply, Zhang Shouyang nodded and then looked at Zhang Shouyuan as he said indifferently, Deal. Zhang Shouyang's words caused Zhang Shouyuan to be unable to refrain from heaving a sigh of relief. Actually, he originally didn't have any confidence. Although he knew that Zhang Shouyang had started to search for the medicinal material in his hand since a few months ago, but he wasn't sure about how great Zhang Shouyang's desire was to obtain this medicinal material. Now, when he heard Zhang Shouyang agree, his heart that was at his throat eased up. He wasn't worried that Zhang Shouyang would go back on his word. After all, there was a group of people that witnessed the trade between him and Zhang Shouyang, so he wasn't afraid of Zhang Shouyang acting shamelessly. Here, with a raise of his hand, the ageless root in Zhang Shouyuan's hand flew out to flash directly towards Zhang Shouyang. He wasn't the slightest bit unwilling. Because up until now, he hadn't discerned what was special about the ageless root. This was just a medicinal material he didn't recognize that he obtained by luck a long time ago, and he'd always had it casually thrown in a corner of his spatial ring. 649 Chapter 650, Refining the Rebirth Pill. He'd only dug out this medicinal material when Zhang Shouyang was looking for it. Of course, he never thought of giving it to Zhang Shouyang. Although Zhang Shouyang was his big brother in name, but he'd never taken Zhang Shouyang to be his big brother in his heart. He'd even thought of withdrawing this medicinal material before Zhang Shouyang, yet not giving it to Zhang Shouyang, causing Zhang Shouyang to be infuriated. Yet he never imagined that a matter like the one of today would have happened. But a medicinal material that he didn't recognize in exchange for his mother's cultivation was something that he felt he benefited from. Presently, the group of Zhang clan elders were completely stunned, and they were unable to recover from their shock for a long time. Originally, when they saw Zhang Shouyuan withdraw that inconspicuous medicinal material, they felt that Zhang Shouyuan was inviting humiliation. Yet never had they imagined that Zhang Shouyang would actually give up making it difficult for the patriarch's wife for the sake of this medicinal material. Unbelievable. Exactly what medicinal material is that? The group of Zhang clan elders were filled with interest towards the medicinal material that was currently held in Zhang Shouyang's hand, and the feelings of the patriarch was exactly similar to the group of elders. He never expected as well that his second son was able to use an inconspicuous medicinal material to turn the tide. But based on the present situation, the ending of the entire matter wasn't bad. His second wife didn't have to be crippled in the end. The matter of today is done. Zhang Shouyang left before these indifferent words before calling out to Duan Lingtian and returning to the courtyard he lived in. Mother. Zhang Shouyang took a deep breath as he extended out his hand to support the woman that was covered in cold sweat. The woman stared at Duan Lingtian and Zhang Shouyang's disappearing figure with eyes that were filled with brutal killing intent. After Duan Lingtian and Zhang Shouyang returned to the courtyard, they walked into a room together. Subsequently, Zhang Shouyang passed the ageless root in his hand to Duan Lingtian. Brother Lingtian, is this medicinal material very important to you? At that time, when Duan Lingtian asked him to help look for the ageless root, he hasn't realized the importance of the ageless root to Duan Lingtian. But after the incident of today, it instead allowed him to realize how important it was to Duan Lingtian. Yes, it's extremely important. Duan Lingtian firmly grasped the ageless root as he tried his best to suppress the feeling in his heart, and he put it away in his spatial ring as if he'd obtained a precious treasure. No matter what, your luck isn't bad. I never imagined that my second brother would actually just happen to have this ageless root. Zhang Shouyang sighed. If it wasn't for you coming to denounce their crimes today and causing his mother to be in a dangerous situation, he might not have handed the ageless root over. Zhang Shouyang knew the conflict between himself and Zhang Shouyang well. Even if Zhang Shouyang had the ageless root and knew that he was looking for it, Zhang Shouyang would still not give it to him. At most, Zhang Shouyang would intentionally take out the ageless root to anger him. I never expected it as well. Duan Lingtian nodded. The incident from today was something that even he felt disbelief towards. If he didn't come to the Zhang clan estate to look for Zhang Shouyang that day, if he didn't encounter Zhang Shouyang's second brother, Zhang Shouyang, then he wouldn't have executed the soul skill, Thousand Illusions, to play a trick of Zhang Shouyang. Nor would he have offended the Zhang clan patriarch's wife because of this, causing her to hate him to the bone and send her subordinates to kill him. All of this seems as if it was predestined by the heavens. Duan Lingtian thought in his heart. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian returned to his senses, and he looked at Zhang Shouyang and said sincerely, Big brother Zhang, no matter what, if it wasn't for you today, it would be impossible for me to force your second mother to that extent. If I wasn't able to force her to that extent, your second brother wouldn't take out the ageless root as the terms of exchange. As far as Duan Lingtian was concerned, the reason he was able to obtain the ageless root was all because of Zhang Shouyang in the end. Brother Lingtian, you're being too polite. Don't forget that you've given me a grade 3 spirit weapon. No matter how valuable the ageless root is, could it be that it's even able to be more valuable than a grade 3 spirit weapon? Zhang Shouyang shook his head. Duan Lingtian couldn't help but be stunned when he heard Zhang Shouyang. He never expected that Zhang Shouyang would compare the ageless root with a grade 3 spirit weapon. After all, a grade 3 spirit weapon wasn't rare to him. So long as he had the materials, he could refine one at any time, whereas, the ageless root was different. Obtaining the ageless root also meant that he could officially start to refine the rebirth pill. When he thought of the heaven-defying medicinal strength of the rebirth pill, Duan Lingtian's feelings surged once more. Big brother Zhang, since the matter of today has been dealt with, I ought to leave as well. Duan Lingtian bid his farewells to Zhang Shouyang. Presently, he was impatient to get home, as he wished for nothing more than to return and refine the heaven-defying medicinal pill, the rebirth pill. I'll send you there. This time, not only did Zhang Shouyang personally send Duan Lingtian out of the Zhang clan estate, he even sent Duan Lingtian all the way to the Darkstone estate. I'll see you in a month. Before Duan Lingtian entered the Darkstone estate, he lightly smiled as he spoke to Zhang Shouyang. I'll see you in a month. Zhang Shouyang nodded. Zhang Shouyang only turned and left after he saw Duan Lingtian safely enter the Darkstone estate. The reason he personally sent Duan Lingtian back was because he was worried that second mother of his would once again send her subordinates to attack Duan Lingtian. He was extremely clear about the temperament of her second mother. She sought vengeance for the smallest grievances without leaving any room for turning back. HMPH. Duan Lingtian had just entered the Darkstone estate when he heard a cold snort found the courtyard ahead, and when he looked carefully, it was the saber young master, Long Yun, that was coldly looking at him. Long Yun. Duan Lingtian's brows raised as his spiritual force stretched out to envelop Long Yun. In next to no time, the corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth twitched. Heavens! What have I seen? This is too crazy, right? Duan Lingtian laughed bitterly in his heart. Earlier, when his spiritual force enveloped Long Yun earlier, he detected Long Yun's cultivation at the first possible moment. But Long Yun's cultivation had exceeded Duan Lingtian's expectations. The 7th level of the Void Initiation stage. Long Yun's cultivation actually surpassed his current cultivation. Duan Lingtian was slightly speechless. Looks like it's really possible that this fellow's cultivation has been pushed up by a pile of spirit fruits. Looks like that master behind him doesn't lack a store of spirit fruits. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. Undeniably, traces of envy had arose in Duan Lingtian's heart. He felt his fortuitous encounters could already be considered to be not bad. But even then, his cultivation was still inferior to Long Yun. Duan Lingtian shook his head and disregarded Long Yun before heading towards the courtyard he stayed in. So long as I consume the rebirth pill, I'll be able to surpass the current Long Yun in one go. In the next year, so long as my comprehension and wind concept is able to follow up, then it wouldn't be impossible for me to break through to the void interpretation stage before the martial competition of the 10 dynasties. When he thought up to here, Duan Lingtian was much more relieved. He had the trump card that was the rebirth pill. Duan Lingtian, you went out again. When his courtyard was just before his eyes, a familiar voice sounded out by Duan Lingtian's ears. Duan Lingtian turned around to look and saw Su Li walking out with large strides from the courtyard nearby, and Su Li's face was glowing. Su Li. Duan Lingtian smiled to Su Li, and then his spiritual force stretched out to envelop Su Li and detect Su Li's current cultivation. But the outcome struck a blow to Duan Lingtian once more. 8th level of the Void Initiation stage. The corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth twitched. Can it be any crazier? The masters of Su Li and Long Yun really have substantial resources. They're actually able to take out so many different spirit fruits for Su Li and Long Yun to consume and advance in cultivation. Quite great interest towards the masters of Su Li and Long Yun had arose in Duan Lingtian's heart. Looks like Su Li is surely able to advance in the dynasty martial competition. As for Long Yun, he similarly has a great chance. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. Duan Lingtian, I forget to ask you the last time, where's the little devil that was following by your side? Su Li looked around and confirmed there were no traces of the little devil from that day before being unable to refrain from asking. Oh her, she left temporarily, said Duan Lingtian. He naturally knew who the little devil Su Li mentioned was. It was undoubtedly Han Shuinai. In the eyes of everyone including Su Li, all of them had taken that little girl Han Shuinai to be a little devil. Needless to say, Duan Lingtian greatly approved this way of addressing Han Shuinai. The little devil did indeed suit Han Shuinai extremely well. Little gold, little black, little white, I hope that all of you can be safe. Otherwise, I'll surely not let the Qingnu off. When he finished thinking, cold lights flickered within Duan Lingtian's eyes and he vowed in his heart. Su Li, I'll be going in first. Duan Lingtian returned to his senses and bid his farewells to Su Li before returning to his room. Su Li only returned to his senses after Duan Lingtian's figure vanished from before his eyes, and he revealed a wisp of a smile as he muttered to himself. Duan Lingtian, I should be able to surpass you this time, right? Su Li's words were obviously filled with confidence towards his current strength. 8th level of the Void Initiation stage. It was sufficient to allow Su Li to be filled with confidence. Duan Lingtian naturally didn't know what Su Li muttered after he left, otherwise, he would only smile indifferently. After all, he was able to refine the rebirth pill today, and once he consumed the rebirth pill, he would be able to attain a transformation similar to being reborn in flames like the divine beast Phoenix. At that time, his cultivation would undergo an enormous change that shook the very world. Duan Lingtian, who'd returned to his room, didn't do anything else, and he directly withdrew the grade 3 spirit weapon cauldron he refined the other day. After he withdrew the cauldron, he first withdrew the 2 types of secondary medicinal catalyst, the ageless root and phoenix wing herb. Subsequently, he withdrew a pile of medicinal materials. The rebirth pill's method of refinement. Duan Lingtian took a deep breath and slowly closed his eyes. In the depths of his mind, the records related to the rebirth pill's method of refinement in the memories of the rebirth martial emperor had fused one by one into his memories, and it became a part of his own memories. After he confirmed that he'd fully grasped it, Duan Lingtian returned to his senses. Now, I'll start refining the rebirth pill. With a raise of his hand, a violet-colored pill fire with traces of copper edges suffused on its surroundings flickered on his hand, and it was precisely the violet copper pill fire. The violet copper pill fire was also called Grade 3 pill fire, and it was possessed by Grade 3 alchemists. 650 Chapter 651, Successive Breakthroughs. Along with the ignition of the Grade 3 pill fire, Duan Lingtian's gaze stared at the cauldron before him with extreme concentration. The cauldron was already a Grade 3 spirit weapon now, and it was able to resist the blazing of a Grade 3 pill fire. Even if a Grade 3 pill fire were to enter into it, it wouldn't be able to make it to melt and be damaged. Whoosh! Duan Lingtian casually raised his hand to skillfully grab up a few medicinal materials and stuff them into the cauldron. Subsequently, the pill fire that burnt on Duan Lingtian's hand abruptly flashed out to be slapped into the cauldron. He officially started refining the medicinal pill. The few medicinal materials that were the first to be thrown in by Duan Lingtian were medicinal materials that were comparatively more difficult to be melted by the pill fire, so he had to put them in first and allow the pill fire to melt them to a certain degree. Half an hour passed, and Duan Lingtian successively threw some of the other medicinal materials into the cauldron. For a time, only the ageless root, phoenix wing herb, and the scarlet phoenix blood which Duan Lingtian hadn't withdrawn from his spatial ring remained. But Duan Lingtian wasn't impatient and he slowly melted the medicinal materials with his pill fire via the cauldron. Another hour passed. Duan Lingtian let out a breath of air, and he excitedly took up the ageless root while his other hand opened the lid of the cauldron, then he threw the ageless root in. Whoosh! The ageless root had only just entered with a flame of indescribable color rose from within the cauldron, and the flames of the cauldron emitted an exceedingly dense medicinal smell. Bang! Subsequently, the cauldron lid descended to cover the cauldron tightly. Duan Lingtian's movements didn't stop because of this. His hands ceaselessly shot out Grade 3 pill fire into the cauldron, and it was as if he was forever tireless. After 15 minutes, Duan Lingtian opened up the cauldron once more. This time, he placed the phoenix wing herb in. After the phoenix wing herb is placed within and refined for half an hour, the rebirth pill would start to take form. But, if I want the rebirth pill to completely take form, then I must fuse the blood of the scarlet phoenix into it the instant it's about to be completed. Duan Lingtian clearly remembered this portion of the rebirth martial emperor's memories. Whoosh, 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 After a short moment, only the sound of the Grade 3 pill fire in Duan Lingtian's hands being pressed into the cauldron remained. Half an hour passed by very quickly. It's done. Duan Lingtian's gaze lit up abruptly, and he withdrew his right hand as the Grade 3 pill fire on it was extinguished. Practically at this instant, Duan Lingtian's right hand descended onto the cauldron. In the next moment, a slap resounded out. Whoosh! A crimson-red bolt of lightning instantly flashed out from the pill retrieval compartment at the side of the cauldron, and it contained a strand of crimson-red flames coiled around it. Rebirth pill. Duan Lingtian's discerning gaze noticed with a glance that the thing that shot out from the cauldron was precisely a medicinal pill that was coiled in crimson-red flames. It was the rebirth pill in the memories of the rebirth martial emperor. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian suppressed the surging emotions in his heart, and his concentrated gaze stared fixedly at the rebirth pill. He knew that he couldn't be the slightest bit careless at this moment. Otherwise, it would affect the final development of the rebirth pill. After leaving the cauldron, the surface of the rebirth pill would have a layer of crimson-red flames, and this was something that Duan Lingtian had found out from the memories of the rebirth martial emperor long ago, so he wasn't surprised by it. Besides that, he also knew that if he wanted the rebirth pill to have the strongest medicinal strength, then he must drip the scarlet phoenix blood on it at the instant the flames on the surface of the rebirth pill fused into it. Only by making the rebirth pill absorb the scarlet phoenix blood at the right moment would it be able to develop the strongest medicinal strength. If it's completed without the scarlet phoenix blood, the rebirth pill would exist only in name. Only the blood of a scarlet phoenix is able to develop the extremely formidable medicinal strength of the rebirth pill. This was something that Duan Lingtian knew clearly in his heart. Presently, Duan Lingtian stared concentrated at the rebirth pill, and he didn't dare be distracted in the slightest. The strand of flames on the surface of the rebirth pill was ceaselessly being drawn into the rebirth pill. In next to no time, only a slight trace remained. It's time. Duan Lingtian's heart shook as he suddenly raised his hand to instantly cause a drop of fiery red liquid to appear. It was the Scarlet Phoenix blood, the main medicinal catalyst of the rebirth pill. Swish! With a raise of his hand, the Scarlet Phoenix blood seemed to have transformed into a red-colored bolt of lightning that flashed out swiftly and shot towards the rebirth pill. The instant the Scarlet Phoenix blood collided with the rebirth pill, the flames on the surface of the rebirth pill just happened to be absorbed into the pill. Meanwhile, it was like the fusing of milk and water as the Scarlet Phoenix blood flawlessly fused into the rebirth pill. Instantly, a flash of light exploded out before Duan Lingtian. With the rebirth pill as the center, a strand of dazzling crimson-red glow exploded out like a miniature sun, causing Duan Lingtian to be unable to refrain from closing his eyes. In next to no time, the scorching sun gradually restrained itself, and a fiery red medicinal pill that didn't look to be special in the slightest had appeared before Duan Lingtian. Rebirth pill. Duan Lingtian took a deep breath, and with a raise of his hand, he grasped the medicinal pill firmly in his hand, as if he was deeply afraid it would escape from his grasp. The medicinal pill felt warm in his hand, and at the same time, a strand of dense medicinal fragrance drifted out. The medicinal fragrance caused his mind to feel at ease when it entered Duan Lingtian's nose. The rebirth pill, I've finally refined it successfully. Duan Lingtian's feelings surged, and with a casual raise of his hand, he put away the cauldron in his spatial ring. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian flew up onto his bed and sat down cross-legged. At the same time, he stuffed the rebirth pill into his mouth. The rebirth pill dissolved as soon as it entered his mouth, transforming into a strand of boundless warmth that ceaselessly flowed along Duan Lingtian's throat to fuse into every corner of his body. Although the medicinal strength of the rebirth pill had been divided into a myriad of strands, every single one was extremely strong, and it caused one to feel shock from the bottom of one's heart. Cultivate. Duan Lingtian took a deep breath, and he held the wind concept fragment in his hand at the same time as he closed his eyes to start cultivating. 9 Dragons War Sovereign Technique, Earth Dragon Form. Along with Duan Lingtian circulating his mental cultivation method, the origin energy in his body started pulsating, and at the same time, his origin energy led the medicinal strength of the rebirth pill to flow along his meridians. At this moment, Duan Lingtian could clearly feel the strengthening and transformation of his origin energy. In his cultivation, Duan Lingtian didn't know how long has passed, but he felt that not long had passed. In next to no time, his cultivation smoothly broke through to the 7th level of the Void Initiation stage. Originally, Duan Lingtian had just broken through to the 6th level of the Void Initiation stage not long ago and was quite a distance away from the 7th level of the Void Initiation stage. If he was to cultivate himself with the assistance of mid-grade origin stones, he would at least have to spend half a year before being confident of breaking through. But now, it seemed that not long had passed before he smoothly broke through. After breaking through to the 7th level of the Void Initiation stage, the pulsation of the origin energy in Duan Lingtian's body grew quicker and quicker, and even the speed it consumed the medicinal strength of the rebirth pill became faster and faster. After he entered the 7th level of the Void Initiation stage, it wasn't long after before Duan Lingtian broke through to the 8th level of the Void Initiation stage. Subsequently, it was the 9th level of the Void Initiation stage. After breaking through to the 9th level of the Void Initiation stage, Duan Lingtian's origin energy still continued to swiftly advance until it advanced to a critical point before stopping. Meanwhile, Duan Lingtian could clearly feel how vast and strengthened his origin energy was. 9th level of the Void Initiation stage. Suddenly, Duan Lingtian opened his eyes, and a bright light that was like a dazzling array of stars in the night sky flashed within. My current strength. Duan Lingtian lightly clenched his fist, and origin energy suffused his fist. Whoosh! Instantly, the energy of heaven and earth above Duan Lingtian roiled, and numerous ancient horned dragon silhouettes gradually condensed into form. In the end, it condensed into a total of 12 ancient horned dragon silhouettes. Without utilizing a spirit weapon or concept, he possessed the strength of 12 ancient horned dragons. It was precisely the symbol of a 9th level Void Initiation stage martial artist. The medicinal strength of the rebirth pill is as overbearing as expected. If it wasn't for the restraint of concept, I would even possibly be able to directly break through to the void interpretation stage this time. When he thoughts up to here, Duan Lingtian couldn't help but sigh. What a pity, my wind concept is only at the 7th level now. Not to mention being extremely far away from advancing to the 1st level of intermediate wind concept, it's even quite far away from advancing to the 9th level of elementary wind concept. Breaking through to the void interpretation stage was already not something that could be achieved just by origin energy. Besides origin energy, one must comprehend 1st level intermediate concept. Just like the current Duan Lingtian, unless he comprehended 1st level intermediate wind concept, otherwise, even if he had the assistance of the rebirth pill, it would be impossible for him to break through to the void interpretation stage. No matter what, even if I don't utilize the soul skill, 1000 illusions, and the grade 1 spirit weapon or quasi-royal grade spirit weapon, my current cultivation is sufficient for me to advance in the dynasty martial competition. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian felt at ease. I wonder what day is it now? The dynasty martial competition should be starting soon, right? Duan Lingtian thought to himself. At the same time, he got off his bed and left his room. After walking out of his room, he walked out and quickly encountered a guard in the Darkstone estate. Big brother, what day is it today? When is the dynasty martial competition starting? Even though the guard didn't know Duan Lingtian, since Duan Lingtian was within the Darkstone estate, Duan Lingtian was undoubtedly one of the 10 great young geniuses of the Darkstone Empire that were participating in the dynasty martial competition. He didn't dare be disrespectful. The dynasty martial competition is starting 10 days from now. 10 days. Duan Lingtian's brows raised, and his eyes revealed slight shock. I never imagined that I only cultivated for 20 days, in other words, I only spent 20 days of time to break through from the 6th level of the void initiation stage to the 9th level of the void initiation stage. When he thought up to here, Duan Lingtian couldn't help but feel slightly complacent in his heart. Leaping through 3 levels in the space of 20 days. Who was able to achieve this? But, the medicinal strength of the rebirth pill is truly strong. My consumption of the rebirth pill's medicinal strength until now is not even a drop in the ocean that is the medicinal strength of the rebirth pill. The more Duan Lingtian thought about it in his heart, the more excited he was. If I'm able to completely consume the medicinal strength of the rebirth pill, it probably wouldn't be a problem for me to break through to the martial monarch stage. Even breaking through to the martial emperor stage might not be impossible. Martial Emperor stage. With the rebirth pill's assistance, I would perhaps be able to break through to the Martial Emperor stage at an age earlier than the second lifetime of the rebirth Martial Emperor. Duan Lingtian's feelings surged as he thought in his heart. 651 Chapter 652, The Death of a Void Interpretation Stage Expert. Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian has only taken a few steps when he heard an aged voice call out to him. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian saw an old man walking over from afar, and he wasn't unfamiliar to him. It was one of the 2 old men that normally followed behind King Yang. Senior. Duan Lingtian lightly smiled to the old man. Although his cultivation wasn't inferior to the old man right now, and when relying on his soul skill, 1000 illusions, he was even able to easily kill the old man. But Duan Lingtian didn't feel that he'd become any different because of this. He was still the same Duan Lingtian from before. He wouldn't put on airs before people he knew from before just because of their difference in strength. The old man returned a smile and said, Duan Lingtian, someone from the Feng clan was looking for you a while ago, and they asked for you to head over to the Feng clan, but you were cultivating at that time. Feng clan. Duan Lingtian's brows raised as he thought in his heart. Could it be that City Governor Feng and Tianwu have returned? They asked someone to invite me over. He didn't know many people in the Feng clan. Besides Feng Wudao and Feng Tianwu, he couldn't think of any other person. Senior, thank you for giving me the message. Duan Lingtian thanked the old man before heading out of the Darkstone estate, as he intended to go to the Feng clan. The old man had a complicated gaze as he looked at Duan Lingtian's figure that disappeared into the distance. I truly never imagined that not only does Duan Lingtian possess shocking natural talent, even the people he knows are extraordinary. The person that came to look for him a few days ago seemed to be a clan guard of the Feng clan. The old man was shocked in his heart. He was practically able to confirm that a person who was able to make a Feng clan guard come look for Duan Lingtian was surely someone of extraordinary status in the Feng clan. Unfortunately, he's too young. Not to mention him, it would probably even be exceedingly difficult for Mo Zan to advance in the dynasty martial competition this time and obtain the qualifications to participate in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties. When he thought up to here, the old man shook his head. Obviously, he didn't think that Duan Lingtian was able to become eminent in the dynasty martial competition and obtain the qualifications to participate in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties. Duan Lingtian, who'd just left the Darkstone estate, couldn't help but frown. Because by relying on his acute senses that he'd developed from his profession as a mercenary in his previous life, he noticed an extremely cold and gloomy gaze staring at him from the shadows. When the gaze descended onto him, it seemed to be filled with killing intent. Looks like the Zhang clan's patriarch's wife still hasn't given up. A wisp of a cold smile appeared on the corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth as he guessed the identity of the person that had arrived. The person had surely been sent over by the wife of the Zhang clan's patriarch. This was something that Duan Lingtian could be sure of. After all, after he arrived at the capital of the Darken dynasty, he hasn't offended anyone, and he only had conflict with the Zhang clan's second young master and the patriarch's wife. Second level of the void interpretation stage. Presently, Duan Lingtian's spiritual force had advanced swiftly along with his cultivation and obtained a tremendous increase. Now, Duan Lingtian's cultivation had broken through to the 9th level of the void initiation stage, and his spiritual force had been pushed to the 2nd level of the void interpretation stage. Relying on his current spiritual force, the cultivation of the void interpretation stage martial artist would be unable to escape before Duan Lingtian. Since he's unable to sense my spiritual force, then he ought to not be an inscription master. A wisp of a cold smile curled on the corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth, and then he took a stride forward. When Duan Lingtian walked out, he noticed that the 2nd level void interpretation stage martial artist followed closely behind him. Whoosh! Duan Lingtian had just turned past a street and hadn't even had the time to enter a remote alley when that void interpretation stage expert had already made a move, and his movements were so swift that it was like a bolt of lightning that was impossible to guard against. As a void interpretation stage martial artist, he didn't have many scruples. Duan Lingtian had just left the street before the Darkstone estate, and he'd already made a move. HMPH. Practically at the instant the void interpretation stage martial artist attacked, Duan Lingtian's spiritual force that was stretched out reacted to this moment, and he couldn't help but grunt coldly. 1,000 illusions. Practically in an instant, a dim light flickered within Duan Lingtian's eyes, and he directly fused his spiritual force into the soul brand at the depths of his soul to execute the soul skill that belonged solely to him. Instantly, an illusory space was constructed by him, and it enveloped an area not far away behind him. It was precisely the place the void interpretation stage martial artist was coming from. After a short moment, the void interpretation stage martial artist entered the illusory space, and his entire body was affected, causing him to stop and flash to another side and attack like the wind. Swoosh, 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 As a void interpretation stage martial artist, this person attacked extremely swiftly, and in the blink of an eye, he'd caused a wave of ear-piercing howls of the wind. At the same time, the airflow in the sky pulsated and gave rise to a gust of violent winds that blew towards Duan Lingtian, who stood nearby, causing his clothes to flutter in the wind. HMPH. Duan Lingtian's gaze went slightly cold as he walked step by step towards the void interpretation stage martial artist and intended to kill him. Although this void interpretation stage martial artist's strength far surpassed him, his enemy had fallen into his illusory space and was utterly unable to guard against him. If he wanted to kill the martial artists, it would be extremely easy. But in next to no time, Duan Lingtian stopped moving, because he noticed that another person had arrived. Swoosh! A figure that was even faster than the void interpretation stage martial artist that had fallen into Duan Lingtian's illusory space flashed over, and the figure arrived nearby Duan Lingtian in the blink of an eye. This figure wasn't unfamiliar to Duan Lingtian. King Yang. Duan Lingtian's gaze lit up as he recognized the person that had arrived. King Yang nodded to Duan Lingtian. At this moment, King Yang's expression was extremely unsightly, and the red mole between his brows had even slightly darkened and seemed to announce the rage in his heart. I noticed him earlier, but I never expected that he'd actually come for you. At the same time that King Yang spoke, he took a step forward. Whoosh! With a raise of his hand, a palm print whistled out to instantly descend onto the void interpretation stage expert's chest, causing him to be killed directly. At this moment, King Yong didn't even notice that something was off with his opponent. Fourth level of the void interpretation stage. Meanwhile, Duan Lingtian's spiritual force detected King Yong's cultivation. Not to mention that this second-level void interpretation stage martial artist had fallen into the illusory space Duan Lingtian created with his soul skill, Thousand Illusions. Even if Duan Lingtian didn't construct the illusory space, this martial artist would die without a doubt at King Yong's hand. Duan Lingtian, who did you offend? There's actually a void interpretation stage martial artist that wants to deal with you. King Yong frowned as he looked at Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian laughed bitterly and didn't conceal anything as he spoke of the conflict between himself and the Zhang clan patriarch's wife. Zhang clan. Slight fear appeared on King Yong's face when he heard this. That Zhang clan isn't simple. Moreover, I heard that the second wife of the Zhang clan's patriarch seems to have an extremely extraordinary background. Duan Lingtian nodded, as he wasn't surprised by this. When he brought those 3 corpses into the Zhang clan the other day, he'd heard that those people had entered the Zhang clan along with the patriarch's wife all those years ago in the form of a dowry. Obviously, the Zhang clan patriarch's wife had a power that possessed extraordinary strength behind her. Where are you going? King Yong asked. The Feng clan. Duan Lingtian lightly smiled as he spoke. Feng clan. King Yong was stunned, and then he said, I heard that someone from the Feng clan came looking for you a few days ago. You know someone from the Feng clan as well? Yes. Duan Lingtian nodded. You've offended the patriarch's wife of the Zhang clan, and your situation is extremely dangerous. I'll send you over, said King Yong to Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian was first stunned when he heard King Yong's words, and then he hurriedly thanked. Thank you, King Yong. There's no need for thanks. If that little devil knows that something happened to you, then wouldn't she kill me? King Yong shook his head and laughed, and as he finished, there was slight bitterness at the corners of his mouth. Duan Lingtian naturally knew who was the little devil that King Yong spoke of, and he couldn't help but laugh embarrassedly. That little girl Shui Nai was someone that even in existence at the 4th level of the void interpretation stage like King Yong feared extremely. It truly caused him to be at a loss for words. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian and King Yong walked side by side and headed toward the Feng clan. Young Master Lingtian. The two of them had only just arrived at the entrance to the Feng clan when a Feng clan guard walked 2 steps forward and bowed in greeting to Duan Lingtian. It's you. Duan Lingtian recognized that when he arrived at the Feng clan for the first time, this Feng clan guard was one of those that were present. Young Master Lingtian, the eldest master said that so long as you arrived, we should directly invite you in. The Feng clan guard spoke respectfully. Duan Lingtian nodded, and then he looked at King Yong and smiled. King Yong, come in with me. As it happens, I can introduce the Feng clan's eldest master to you. King Yong was stunned long ago when the Feng clan guard had finished speaking. The Feng clan's eldest master. Although he was only a king in the Darkstone Empire, he was the #1 expert in the Darkstone Empire at the same time, and he normally liked to wander about in the Darken Dynasty. Because he could only find the passion he sought in the Darken Dynasty. In the Darken Dynasty, there were many void interpretation stage independent experts that were able to spar with him, whereas, the reason he possessed his current cultivation was precisely because of the ceaseless sparring he'd experienced with the void interpretation stage experts in the Darken Dynasty for many years. Otherwise, it would have been extremely difficult for him to break through to the 4th level of the void interpretation stage with just his natural talent. After wandering about in the Darken Dynasty for a long time, he naturally knew in detail about some things in the Darken Dynasty. Amongst them, the name of the Feng clan's eldest master was like thunder that reverberated in his ears since long ago. Supposedly, the Feng clan's eldest master was the #1 young expert of the Darken Dynasty a few tens of years ago. Later on, his cultivation was even almost on par with the 2 great ancestors of the Feng clan. Yet at that time, the age of the Feng clan's eldest master wasn't even half the age of the 2 ancestors of the Feng clan. As far as he was concerned, the cultivation of the Feng clan's eldest master had even possibly surpassed the 2 Feng clan ancestors now. It was even to the extent that the Feng clan's eldest master's cultivation might even be able to compare with that existence in the imperial family. Alright, King Yong didn't refuse Duan Lingtian's invitation, and he followed Duan Lingtian to enter the Feng clan estate. Under the lead of the Feng clan guard, the two of them moved through the Feng clan estate. Duan Lingtian, how did you get acquainted with the Feng clan's eldest master? On the way, King Yong couldn't help but ask curiously. 652 Chapter 653, Reunion. After all, although the eldest master of the Feng clan was almost the same age as King Yong, he was an unreachable existence to King Yong. The Feng clan was a formidable clan that was only inferior to the imperial family in the Darken dynasty, and the experts within it were numerous like the clouds. Merely existences at the 7th level of the void interpretation stage or above were almost 10 in number. Amongst them were the 2 great ancestors of the Feng clan that supposedly were existences at the 8th level of the void interpretation stage or above, whereas, the Feng clan's eldest master Feng Wudao was supposedly to have already become not the slightest bit inferior to the Feng clan's 2 great ancestors since a few years ago. Most importantly, he was still young, and his cultivation was still able to continue advancing. I got to know him by chance. Duan Lingtian smiled, yet didn't speak of it in detail. How was he supposed to say it? Could it be that he could say that because of an extremely crazy prediction, Feng Wudao had brought along his daughter to a city in the southern area of the Darkstone Empire a few years ago and became the governor of that city before holding a groom search competition for his daughter? King Yong nodded. He was an intelligent person and discerned that Duan Lingtian didn't want to say anything further, so he didn't continue asking. But when he thought of how he was about to meet that great figure in the rumors, King Yong's breathing couldn't help but become hurried. The number 1 expert of the Darkstone Empire, King Yong, had lived half his lifetime, yet when had he lost his composure like this in the past? After a short moment, Duan Lingtian and King Yong arrived before an estate within the estate under the lead of the Feng clan guard. You can return, I'll go in myself. When he saw the Feng clan guard about to knock on the door, Duan Lingtian spoke out. Yes, young Master Lingtian, then I'll take my leave first. The Feng clan guard nodded respectfully to Duan Lingtian before leaving. King Yong was completely disregarded by him. Of course, King Yong didn't feel that slightest bit displeased. Not to mention the guard didn't know his identity. Even if the guard knew his identity, the guard would surely not be afraid of him. Although he was only a guard, he was still a guard of the Feng clan. Even if King Yong was perhaps able to assassinate a Feng clan guard in secret, he would absolutely not dare kill a Feng clan guard openly before a member of the Feng clan. The dignity of the Feng clan wasn't something that a king from a tiny empire like him could be disrespectful towards. Knock, knock. Duan Lingtian took 2 steps forward and knocked on the door of the estate before him. Not long after, Duan Lingtian heard a wave of hurried footsteps sound out from within. Click. Subsequently, the door was opened, and an aged and thin figure walked over with large strides to appear before Duan Lingtian. Grandma Shu. Duan Lingtian lightly smiled as he nodded towards the old lady that opened the door. Young Master Lingtian. When she saw Duan Lingtian, Grandma Shu squeezed out a smile that looked more unsightly than a crying expression. Subsequently, Grandma Shu's gaze descended onto King Yong who stood behind Duan Lingtian. This is King Yong, a king of the Darkstone Empire, and the person who was in the lead of the group when bringing me to the Darken dynasty to participate in the dynasty martial competition. Duan Lingtian lightly smiled as he introduced King Yong to Grandma Shu. King Yong. Grandma Shu's gaze descended onto King Yong, and then she nodded lightly. I've heard of you, the number 1 expert of the Darkstone Empire. You flatter me. King Yong hurriedly spoke modestly. Young Master Lingtian, please enter. In next to no time, Grandma Shu greeted Duan Lingtian into the estate. As for King Yong, she didn't pay any further attention to him, and King Yong wasn't surprised by this as well. Since this old lady was able to stay within the estate of the Feng clan's eldest master, her identity in the Feng clan was presumably extraordinary, and even if her strength was inferior to him, she wasn't someone he could offend. In next to no time, Grandma Shu led Duan Lingtian and King Yong into the audience hall within the estate. The audience hall was completely empty. Young Master Lingtian, I'll go invite the eldest master over. Grandma Shu notified Duan Lingtian before turning around and heading out. Grandma Shu hadn't left for long when Duan Lingtian heard a wave of hurried footsteps. King Yong's expression became serious when he heard this. Only Duan Lingtian had a slight smile on his face as he looked towards the entrance of the audience hall. In next to no time, an aged figure appeared before Duan Lingtian and King Yong, and it caused King Yong to be unable to help but be stunned. Isn't that the eldest master of the Feng clan? Elder Kong. Duan Lingtian looked at the old man and revealed a brilliant smile. The person that had appeared before him and King Yong was none other than Elder Kong, who he'd met in Phoenix Nest City on that day. Elder Kong's cultivation was extraordinary, and at the same time, he was also an inscription master. In the entire Darkin dynasty, his art of inscriptions was matchless. In the territory of the Darkin dynasty, if he were to say he was second in the Tao of inscriptions, then no one would dare say they were the first. Haha, Brother Duan, we meet again. When he saw Duan Lingtian once more, Elder Kong laughed joyfully, and his eyes were filled with recollection. In his eyes, Duan Lingtian wasn't simply a young man, as this young man's attainments in the Tao of inscription was something that even he admired greatly. Moreover, he'd learned many things from this young man all those years ago. It was precisely because of the guidance of this young man all those years ago that his attainments in the Tao of inscriptions was able to advance in a short period of time. Yeah, we meet again. Duan Lingtian nodded. Elder Kong, King Yong who stood by Duan Lingtian's side was stunned once more when he heard how Duan Lingtian addressed the old man. Elder Kong, he was naturally familiar with this name. There were many outstanding inscription masters in the Darkin dynasty, and they were able to inscribe miraculous inscriptions, whereas, amongst these inscription masters, there was one person that was the most outstanding. That person was the revered elder of the Feng clan, and people called him Elder Kong. Supposedly, no one in the Darkin dynasty was able to compare with the attainments of the Feng clan's Elder Kong in the Tao of inscriptions, and only a few inscription masters in a few dynasties had the qualifications to sit on equal ground as Elder Kong. In the Darkin dynasty, Elder Kong's reputation wasn't inferior to the Feng clan's eldest master, Feng Wudao. Brother Duan, this is. Meanwhile, Elder Kong noticed King Yong as well. This is King Yong. Duan Lingtian introduced King Yong to Elder Kong as well. King Yong, I've heard of you, the #1 expert of the Darkstone Empire, your cultivation isn't bad. Elder Kong sized King Yong up and nodded lightly. Elder Kong. Even though Elder Kong had only greeted King Yong indifferently, yet King Yong didn't dare be discourteous and hurriedly bowed respectfully. Not to mention the attainments of this old man in the Tao of inscriptions, even the old man's cultivation was something that was difficult for him to reach. Elder Kong similarly paid no further attention to King Yong, and he instead carried on chatting passionately with Duan Lingtian, causing King Yong to be slightly embarrassed. Duan Lingtian noticed this and occasionally brought King Yong into the topic, allowing King Yong to avoid much embarrassment. Lingtian. Not long after, a clear voice entered into the audience hall. Subsequently, a dignified middle-aged man in a fiery red robe strode in with majestic gait, and his imposing manner was extraordinary. At the side of this dignified middle-aged man was a young woman that followed like a shadow. The woman wore red clothes and was like a fairy of fire. Besides that, she also had an absolutely beautiful face that was dazzling, and she had black brows that seemed to have come from a painting. Her eyes were like 2 drops of autumn water, and she possessed a beautiful nose, cherry red lips, white teeth, and naturally aligned features that drew out a beautiful outline and caused her to be suffocatingly beautiful. She was like a celestial maiden that had descended into the mortal world. Big Brother Duan. When the red-clothed young woman saw Duan Lingtian, her beautiful face revealed pleasant surprise. City Governor Feng. Duan Lingtian nodded with a smile to the dignified middle-aged man before looking at the red-clothed woman. Tian Wu. The people that arrived were precisely the pair of father and daughter, Feng Wudao and Feng Tian Wu. Haha, Lingtian, you've finally arrived. Feng Wudao laughed, and he arrived before Duan Lingtian in a short moment before nodding with satisfaction. Not bad, you're even more robust than before. I heard from Grandma Shu that you obtained the qualifications from the Darkstone Empire to participate in the Dynasty Martial competition. Looks like your current cultivation isn't bad. It's normal. Duan Lingtian smiled modestly. Big Brother Duan. Feng Tianwu left Feng Wudao's side and stood by Duan Lingtian's side with a beautiful face that was slightly red, and she was slightly ill at ease. You've come. Duan Lingtian nodded. I have. When Feng Tianwu heard Duan Lingtian's reply, she seemed to have recalled something, and the rosiness of her face became even more obvious and clear. A grown girl can't be kept at home. Lingtian has only just arrived, yet Tianwu has already left me, her father, and stood over there with him. Feng Wudao sighed intentionally. Father, what are you saying? Instantly, Feng Tianwu was embarrassed to the point of wishing for nothing more than to drill a hole and hide within it, and her face became even more red, as if blood would drip out from it. Alright, I won't joke with you, Lingtian, this is. In next to no time, Feng Wudao's gaze descended onto King Yong. King Yong was truly too conspicuous. His figure was robust, his expression dignified, and especially the red mole in the center of his brows was extremely conspicuous. City Governor Feng, he's King Yang. Duan Lingtian introduced King Yang once more. King Yang, the #1 expert of the Darkstone Empire, you deserve your reputation. A trace of surprise was revealed within Feng Wudao's eyes as he nodded. I'm grateful to you for taking care of Lingtian all along the way here, thank you. Lord Wudao, you're too kind. Since Duan Lingtian came from our Darkstone Empire, then I have to take care of him no matter what. King Yang's breathing became hurried one more when facing Feng Wudao, and his heartbeat quickened as well. Even though he was the #1 expert of the Darkstone Empire, and he received the reverence of the people of the Darkstone Empire. But before Feng Wudao, he didn't dare put on any airs. You're very good. Feng Wudao nodded and smiled to King Yang. For a time, King Yang was slightly overwhelmed by the unexpected favor. Lingtian, I'm already not a city governor now, in the future, directly call me Uncle Feng, said Feng Wudao to Duan Lingtian, and his tone was exceedingly amiable like a kind senior. Yes, Uncle Feng, Duan Lingtian hurriedly nodded. The dynasty martial competition is 10 days from now, at that time, Tian Wu will be participating as well. The current Tian Wu isn't the past Tian Wu, and I'm afraid you're going to suffer a loss if you encounter her. As he finished speaking, Feng Wudao couldn't help but laugh. He still remembered how his daughter suffered a loss before Duan Lingtian in the past. As far as he was concerned, his daughter was surely capable of redeeming herself this time. 653 Chapter 654, Resounding Slap. Perhaps. Duan Lingtian glanced at Feng Tianwu who was behind him when he heard this, and then he smiled lightly. Actually, early on when Feng Tianwu had just made an appearance, his spiritual force had already stretched out to detect Feng Tianwu's cultivation. 7th level of the Void Initiation Stage. Feng Tianwu's cultivation caused Duan Lingtian to be shocked. But when he thought of Feng Tianwu's fire spirit body, Duan Lingtian came to an understanding. As an innate spirit body, its speed of cultivation was normally extremely quick, and it was especially so for the comprehension of force and concept, it was swift to an absurd degree. For example, as a possessor of the fire spirit body, the speed of Feng Tianwu's comprehension in fire force and fire concept was something that ordinary people were utterly unable to imagine. Perhaps, the speed Tianwu comprehended fire concept is even not inferior to the comprehension speed of a martial artist that possesses an extremely high comprehension ability and a fire concept fragment. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. But Duan Lingtian's spiritual force was able to detect Feng Tianwu's current cultivation, yet was unable to find out the level of her comprehension in fire concept. Father, what are you saying? Big brother Lingtian is surely stronger than me. When she saw Duan Lingtian look over, Feng Tianwu's beautiful face that has just eased up flushed red once again, and she spoke to Feng Wudao at the same time. Her words were filled with confidence towards Duan Lingtian. Feng Wudao couldn't help but laugh bitterly when he saw his daughter being so protective over Duan Lingtian. Lingtian, have you awakened to an innate spirit body now? Feng Wudao looked at Duan Lingtian and asked via voice transmission, and his tone contained traces of seriousness. No, Duan Lingtian shook his head and replied via voice transmission. Uncle Feng, I think that prediction might be. No, Duan Lingtian hadn't finished speaking when Feng Wudao interrupted him with a voice transmission, and his tone was resolute and decisive. Duan Lingtian laughed bitterly and was at a loss for words. Just wait, you'll only be 30 in another 2 or 3 years. Perhaps you'll awaken to a water spirit body or ice spirit body in the next 3 years. Feng Wudao said via voice transmission. If I'm unable to awaken to an innate spirit body at the age of 30, then would Uncle Feng be able to confirm that the prediction was inaccurate? Duan Lingtian asked. Even if you're unable to awaken to an innate spirit body at the age of 30, so long as Wu is unable to encounter a possessor of a water spirit body or ice spirit body by the age of 29, then I hope that you can get married and become one with her. As he finished speaking via voice transmission, Feng Wudao's tone was filled with seriousness. Obviously, if it was really like that, then although he would still believe the prediction, but his resolution would still be slightly swayed. If it really came to that moment, he would rather resort to desperate means than be willing to allow his daughter to face the danger of exploding from the pent-up energy of her fire spirit body. Duan Lingtian was instantly speechless when he heard this. But he knew as well that he'd already become the only person that was able to save Feng Tianwu in the eyes of Feng Wudao. That prediction, now, Duan Lingtian was truly slightly speechless as he didn't know why the prediction just had to choose him. Although he possessed fortuitous encounters that far surpassed ordinary people and had even fused with the memories of the rebirth martial emperor, but he really didn't feel that he was able to save Feng Tianwu. The fire spirit body was too troublesome. This was something that he'd found out from the memories of the rebirth martial emperor long ago. But Duan Lingtian also knew that since Feng Wudao had already decided, then saying anything more would be of no use. I only hope that it won't really come to that situation. If it really came to that situation, then I can only try and see whether I'm able to help Tianwu get through this calamity. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. If I'm unable to help Tianwu, then I'll try my best so that I have no regrets. If I'm able to save Tianwu, then I'll surely carry out the responsibilities of a man and be responsible for Tianwu. Duan Lingtian quickly had a decision in his heart. Uncle Feng, I heard you intend to make Tianwu appear in public. Duan Lingtian recalled when Grandma Shu said that day and couldn't refrain from asking. Yes, Feng Wudao nodded, and he glanced at Feng Tianwu with a doting gaze. During all these years, Tianwu has always silently followed by my side and no one knew of her existence. This time, I want to make everyone know that the Feng clan has this little princess. Feng Wudao's tone obviously contained slight guilt. Duan Lingtian, who knew the reason for everything, naturally knew why Feng Wudao would feel guilty, yet Tianwu didn't. Father, so long as I'm by your side, I don't care if others know I'm your daughter or not. Feng Tianwu walked to stand by Feng Wudao's side and held his hand as she spoke with a gentle voice. Suddenly, a voice transmission sounded out by Duan Lingtian's ears. Duan Lingtian, I want to have a chat with Lord Wudao. Duan Lingtian nodded to King Yang, and then he looked at Feng Tianwu and said, Tianwu, bring me around your Feng clan estate. Feng Tianwu nodded with slight embarrassment when she heard this. All right. Uncle Feng, I hope that you and Elder Kong can properly entertain King Yang for a while. During the journey here, King Yang has taken quite good care of me. Before Duan Lingtian brought Feng Tianwu along and left, he spoke to Feng Wudao and Elder Kong. When the two of them heard this, they glanced at each other before shaking their heads and smiling. The two of them had lived for more than half their lifetimes, so they were naturally able to discern the deep meaning within Duan Lingtian's words, and it was undoubtedly words that hoped they would entertain King Yang properly. During all these years, there was practically no companion of the same age by Tianwu's side. You help me take good care of Tianwu. Feng Wudao glanced deeply at Duan Lingtian and replied. Of course. Duan Lingtian nodded earnestly. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian left the audience hall with Feng Tianwu, and then they left the vast estate. After walking out of the estate, Duan Lingtian recalled something and looked at Feng Tianwu as he asked with slight hesitance. Tianwu, I heard you haven't come into contact with the other people of the Feng clan since you were young. Are you familiar with the Feng clan estate? Big brother Duan, don't worry. Feng Tianwu said with a smile, although I didn't come into contact much with the other people of the Feng clan, but I frequently wander about the Feng clan estate. Duan Lingtian came to an understanding. Yet Duan Lingtian didn't know that although the other people of the Feng clan didn't know of Feng Tianwu's identity, they knew that a person called Feng Tianwu existed in the Feng clan. Of course, in their eyes, Feng Tianwu was only the granddaughter of Grandma Shu. They'd never connected the eldest master Feng Wudao with Feng Tianwu. Under Feng Tianwu's lead, Duan Lingtian started to leisurely go around the Feng clan estate. Needless to say, the Feng clan estate was exceedingly large, and the two of them had gone around for a long time before finally wandered through a small corner of it. Big brother Duan, I loved to be here the most when I was young. Every time Grandma Shu brought up a bucket of water, I would splash it all over her. Unknowingly, Duan Lingtian and Feng Tianwu arrived before a well, and Feng Tianwu smiled as she spoke. Presently, Feng Tianwu seemed like a child that hadn't grown up, simple and innocent. Duan Lingtian's gaze was complicated as he looked at Feng Tianwu, and he sighed in his heart. Why are the heavens so unfair to such a good girl? Not only is her life full of misfortunes, she was even given the fire spirit body. All along the way, Duan Lingtian followed behind Feng Tianwu, and they unknowingly arrived near the center area of the Feng clan estate. Big brother Duan, past the pathway before us is the martial practice field of the Feng clan. Feng Tian pointed towards the distance as she spoke. Duan Lingtian nodded and headed towards the martial practice field with Feng Tianwu. The Feng clan's martial practice field was extremely vast, and it caused Duan Lingtian to be unable to refrain from being astonished. What a large martial practice field! Duan Lingtian couldn't help but exclaim with admiration. This Feng clan estate's martial practice field was absolutely the largest he'd ever seen. Presently, the martial practice field was bustling with noise and people moved up and down atop it, and there were even many people sparring that drew the spectating of many people. Feng Hao, she's from your Feng clan. Her appearance isn't bad. Suddenly, a frivolous voice sounded out by Duan Lingtian's ears, and the voice came from behind him. Obviously, it was the person behind him that said it. Kind of. In next to no time, another voice sounded out. She seems to be the granddaughter of the servant girl that was by the side of our previous patriarch's wife, but she's extremely cold. I once struck up a conversation with her in the past, but she never paid any attention. Now, Duan Lingtian was finally able to confirm. These two voices of discussion turned out to be precisely discussing Feng Tianwu, who was beside him. Meanwhile, Duan Lingtian couldn't help but glance at Feng Tianwu, whereas, Feng Tianwu had a calm expression as if she utterly didn't hear the discussion between those two people. But when Feng Tianwu noticed Duan Lingtian look over, she lightly shook her head instead and said via voice transmission, "Big brother Duan, they're just silly people, there's no need to pay attention to them." Okay. Duan Lingtian lightly smiled as he nodded. But in next to no time, the smile on Duan Lingtian's face froze. The granddaughter of the servant girl by the side of the previous patriarch's wife. So in other words, she's only a lowly servant. The person that spoke the first earlier had spoken out once more. Meanwhile, Duan Lingtian was able to perceive that Feng Tianwu's delicate body lightly trembled, and her pair of beautiful watery eyes even revealed rage. Swoosh! Right at this moment, Duan Lingtian moved. Whirlwind. Duan Lingtian's movement was too swift like a bolt of lightning, and he flashed behind in the blink of an eye. Slap. A resounded slap sounded out. Meanwhile, Duan Lingtian's figure stopped. Presently, Duan Lingtian glared coldly at the young man in luxurious clothes before him that let out a shrill cry and groaned while holding his face, and Duan Lingtian said in a low voice. "Watch your mouth." Duan Lingtian's words were filled with coldness. Big brother Duan. Meanwhile, Feng Tianwu stood by Duan Lingtian's side as well, and her beautiful flushed red and contained a slight happy smile mixed within. Kid, you dare hit me. Do you know who I am?" The young man in luxurious clothes rubbed the swollen half of his face as he spoke coldly with an unclear voice, and his voice was filled with coldness. Meanwhile, the other young man who stood by the side of the young man in luxurious clothes stared at Duan Lingtian as he shouted. "Kid, who are you? You actually dare trespass into our Feng clan?" Duan Lingtian paid no attention to the latter and directly looked at the young man in luxurious clothes, and the corners of his mouth curled into a wisp of a cold smile. "Now that you say this, I truly am slightly curious, who are you?" 654 Chapter 655, The Consequences of Being Rude. HMPH. You don't know who I am, yet you dare touch me. It seems to me that you're tired of living. The young man in luxurious clothes grunted coldly, and glared angrily at Duan Lingtian as if he wished for nothing more than to transform into a fierce beast that directly swallowed Duan Lingtian. "Kid, this is the Yi clan's second young master. It looks to me that you're completely courting death by even daring to touch him." The Feng clan disciple, Feng Hao, that stood by the side of the young man in luxurious clothes looked at Duan Lingtian as he sneered. "Yi clan," Duan Lingtian muttered. Subsequently, under the complacent gaze of the young man in luxurious clothes, Duan Lingtian shook his head. "Sorry, I've been in the capital for more than half a year, yet I've never heard of any Yi clan. Is the Yi clan really amazing?" As he finished speaking, Duan Lingtian scanned Feng Hao and the young man in luxurious clothes with a curious expression. You. The complacent smile on the young man in luxurious clothes froze instantly, and he was angered to the point his body started trembling as he pointed out towards Duan Lingtian. But he didn't know what to say. The young man before him hadn't even heard of his Yi clan, so how could the young man know of him, the second young master of the Yi clan? The Yi clan is a formidable clan in the Darken dynasty that's merely inferior to the imperial family in our Feng clan. This person by my side is even the second son of the current Yi clan patriarch, young master Yi Shang. Feng Hao looked at Duan Lingtian with a cold and indifferent gaze, and he had an expression that said, "You're dead." Merely inferior to the imperial family in the Feng clan. Duan Lingtian's heart jerked slightly. Wouldn't that mean that this Yi clan is able to compare with the Zhang clan? Sorry, I still haven't heard of it. Duan Lingtian shook his head, and he had a carefree expression from the beginning until the end. As for Feng Tianwu, who stood by Duan Lingtian's side, she was even more indifferent. What a joke! Who was her father? The Feng clan's eldest master, Feng Wudao, was an existence that seemed to have already surpassed the two ancestors of the Feng clan. In other words, he seemed to be the #1 expert of the Feng clan. A clan that was even inferior to the Feng clan was something that she was utterly indifferent to. When they heard Duan Lingtian's words, the expressions of Feng Hao and Yi Xiong became even more unsightly. Kid, you still haven't told me who you are and why you're in my Feng clan estate. Feng Hao said in a low voice, not any Tom, Dick, or Harry, is able to enter our Feng clan, especially this area. If the permission of our Feng clan's direct descendant higher-ups isn't obtained, then outsiders aren't allowed to approach here. When he spoke up to here, Feng Hao's gaze revolved as he glanced deeply at Feng Tianwu. It was as if he was saying, you don't have the qualifications to bring someone over here, right? When he saw the gaze Feng Hao shot at Feng Tianwu, Duan Lingtian was naturally able to guess what Feng Hao was thinking, and he couldn't help but laugh. Duan Lingtian was extremely curious. If Feng Hao were to know that Feng Tianwu was the only daughter of the Feng clan's eldest master Feng Wudao, what kind of expression would he have? He extremely yearned to see that scene. Feng Tianwu paid no attention to Feng Hao and completely disregarded him. Hey, Duan Lingtian was instead laughing at this moment, and he laughed. You said earlier that if the permission of your Feng clan's direct descendant higher-ups isn't obtained, then outsiders aren't allowed to approach this area, right? Duan Lingtian asked in reply. Of course. Feng Hao nodded. Then he is currently in this area. Could it be that he has obtained the permission of the direct descendant higher-ups of the Feng clan? Duan Lingtian glanced lazily at Yi Xiong and asked once more. Yi Zhang's mood had already eased up slightly, and he only glared hatefully at Duan Lingtian, yet when he heard Duan Lingtian mention him again now, he couldn't help but be enraged. Kid, looks like you really want to court death. Want to kill me? That depends on if you have the ability. Duan Lingtian spoke in ridicule. As the second young master of the Yi clan, Yi Xiong wasn't someone with a good temper, and now that he was provoked like this by Duan Lingtian, he instantly flared up. Then I'll let you experience my ability. Yi Xiong shouted out explosively as the origin energy on his body rose explosively, and he seemed to have transformed into a fierce tiger that opened its bloody mouth and pounced towards Duan Lingtian, seeming as if he wanted to bite Duan Lingtian to death with a single bite. At the same time that Yi Zhang's figure flashed out, 3 ancient horned dragon silhouettes appeared above him, and as he dashed closer towards Duan Lingtian, another 2 ancient horned dragon silhouettes appeared. The strength of 5 ancient horned dragons. Second level of the Void Initiation stage, second level elementary concept. After he discerned Yi Zhang's cultivation, the disdain on the corner of Duan Lingtian's mouth grew deeper. Impudent. Right when Duan Lingtian was about to make a move, an enraged delicate shout sounded out abruptly. A figure that was like a fairy of flames flashed out like a ball of flames and swept towards Yi Xiong. In the next moment, Yi Xiong let out a shrill cry, and his flew out like an arrow leaving the bow. Bang! Yi Xiong fiercely fell to the ground, and he tumbled successively in an extremely sorry state. Meanwhile, a fiery red figure had appeared before Duan Lingtian, and it was precisely Feng Tianwu. The events before him were so sudden that Feng Hao was unable to react to them for some time. Yi Xiong, when he reacted to what had happened, his face went dark as he hurriedly went to support Yi Xiong up. You actually dare lift a hand against young Master Yi Xiong, you lowly servant. Feng Hao looked at Feng Tianwu and spoke with a tone that was filled with rage. In his eyes, Feng Tianwu was only the granddaughter of an old servant of the Feng clan, and although she usually stayed at the estate of the eldest master, Feng Wudao, she had no status to speak of. In terms of status, she was only worthy of carrying his shoes, yet a lowly servant like this actually dared injure his friend. She deserved death. HMPH. Right at this moment, a cold grunt sounded out. Subsequently, a howl of the wind swept out, and in the next moment, a slap resounded out. Suddenly, Duan Lingtian, who wore violet clothes, was already standing before Feng Hao and Yi Xiong, whereas, there was a clear palm print on Feng Hao's face, and it was still warm. Ah! Feng Hao was slightly late in perceiving it and emitting a shrill cry, and he stared at Duan Lingtian with a gaze that contained hate and even more hate. He wished for nothing more than to burn Duan Lingtian's bones and scatter the ashes. Isn't that Feng Hao? That person beside him, it seems to be the Yi clan's second young master, Yi Xiong, right? Both of them have exactly similar palm prints on their faces, looks like both of them were slapped by that violet-clothed young man. Good gracious, who is this guy? He's too formidable. Many people whispered in discussion as they approached the location of Duan Lingtian and the others. These people were disciples of the Feng clan, and they were originally scattered all over the Feng clan's martial practice field, yet now that they noticed the commotion over here, they surrounded them while filled with interest. When they saw so many people surrounding them, Feng Hao and Yi Shang, who felt they'd lost face greatly, felt their vital blood gush into their heads, causing them to feel their faces burn. When has they lost such face in their entire lifetimes? Could they endure it? Kid, you actually dare hit me. You dare hit me in our Feng clan's territory. Feng Hao took a step forward and glared angrily at Duan Lingtian. Didn't you ask me if Yi Shang obtained the permission of the direct descendant higher-ups of the Feng clan to come here? Now, I'll tell you. I, Feng Hao, am the only grandson of the Feng clan's third elder. Even if my friend didn't obtain permission, he can still enter here. Feng Hao's tone was filled with violent rage, and he quickly looked at Feng Tianwu. I'm different from this lowly servant by your side. Her birth causes her to be bound to have no qualifications to bring an outsider to this area. Feng Hao's voice were clearly indecisive. He instead didn't notice that when the words, lowly servant, were spoken once more, the flames of rage within the depths of Duan Lingtian's eyes that had calmed down before blazed once more. You really are rude. Looks like the lesson I gave you earlier wasn't enough. Duan Lingtian spoke out, although his tone was calm, yet it caused the people present to shudder with fear. Swoosh. In the next moment, Duan Lingtian moved once more, and he seemed to have transformed into a gale that swept out. At practically the exact same instant, the surrounding spectators saw the clothes of Feng Hao and Yi Shang had suddenly started fluttering as if they were blown by the wind. Slap. A resounding slap sounded out once again, and it was clear and ear-piercing. Subsequently, everyone noticed that the other side of Feng Hao's face became swollen as well, and he seemed to have become puffed up like the head of a pig. How fast? He's too fast. At the same time that the surrounding crowd of Feng clan disciples that were spectating exclaimed in admiration at Duan Lingtian's fearless courage, they were extremely shocked by Duan Lingtian's ability. This young man looked to be around 25 years old at most, and even if he took good care of his appearance, he ought to not be more than 30. But from the attack he executed earlier, the young man was obviously already at the 4th level of the Void Initiation stage or above. Such strength was shocking. Feng Tianwu stood nearby, and as she watched Duan Lingtian stand up repeatedly for her, she felt warmth in her heart, and her peerlessly beautiful face even revealed traces of a smile of joy. Presently, Feng Tianwu was simply like a celestial maiden whose heart had been moved by Immortal, and her beautiful and cute appearance caused one to wish for nothing more than to charge up and kiss her. You're dead, you're dead. Feng Hao was angered to the point his entire body trembled intensely, but his current voice was slightly blurred and indistinct. The surrounding crowd of spectators weren't surprised by this. His mouth was slapped to the point of becoming swollen. Thus, how could he speak clearly? For a time, many people looked at Duan Lingtian with gazes filled with fear. Most people were curious about who exactly this young man was to actually be so domineering and slap the grandson the Feng clan's third elder doted on the most to the point of becoming a pig's head. Moreover, the young man had obviously given the Yi clan's second young master, Yi Shang, a slap. I'm dead. Duan Lingtian never imagined that Feng Hao still dared to say this at a time like this, and he couldn't help but laugh. Looks like you haven't had enough slaps, want to try again? Presently, when the smile on Duan Lingtian's face entered the eyes of Feng Hao, it was no different than the appearance of a devil, and it caused his body to be unable to refrain from shuddering. Kid, feel free to be complacent now. The instant you lifted your hand against me, your fate was sealed. This day a year from now is the anniversary of your death. An extremely cold sheen suffused Yi Zhang's eyes as he stared fixedly at Duan Lingtian. 655 Chapter 656, The Death of Feng Hao. He spoke as if Duan Lingtian would surely die today. What, even now you still think that you can kill me? When faced with Yi Zhang's overestimation of his abilities, Duan Lingtian couldn't help but laugh in disdain. I can't kill you, but the experts in my Yi clan are numerous like the clouds. Killing a little kid like you is extremely simple. Yi Shang wiped the bloodstain on the corner of his mouth as he laughed coldly. So in this way, no matter what, I'm unable to escape death. Even if I kill you now, I don't have to have any scruples. Duan Lingtian smiled as he took a step forward. Duan Lingtian's words caused Yi Zhang's face to go pale, and he hurriedly shouted out. Kid, if you take another step forward, I'll make that lowly servant by your side die a graveless death. Right at this moment, Duan Lingtian, whose face had sunk, attacked once more. Slap! Another slap swung onto the other side of Yi Zhang's face, causing it to become swollen and for Yi Shang to become another pig head, following in the footsteps of Feng Hao. Yi Shang was slapped to the point he felt dizzy and his vision blurred, and he wasn't capable of finishing a complete sentence for a long time. I'll cut off the tongue of anyone who dares insult Tian Wu again. Duan Lingtian's eyes flickered with a cold light as he shouted out with a grim voice. Instantly, Yi Shang and Feng Hao were terrified to the point of not daring to say another word, yet a ruthless sheen was still contained in the depths of their eyes. If they had the sufficient strength, they'd have killed Duan Lingtian since long ago. Presently, they purely bowed because of circumstances. Duan Lingtian naturally noticed the gazes of Yi Shang and Feng Hao, yet he couldn't be bothered to pay attention to it. Tian Wu, it's boring here, let's return. Duan Lingtian looked at Feng Tian Wu and smiled lightly. Feng Tian Wu was looking with slight infatuation at Duan Lingtian, and when she saw Duan Lingtian look over, she instantly lowered her head in embarrassment. But in next to no time, Feng Tian Wu's beautiful face darkened. Tian Wu, what's wrong? When he saw Feng Tian Wu's abrupt change in expression, Duan Lingtian's heart jerked. Whoosh! But Feng Tian Wu didn't respond to Duan Lingtian, and she directly flashed out like a ball of crimson-red flame that swept toward Feng Hao. Instantly, Feng Hao was enveloped in flames. Ah! A miserable shrill cry sounded out suddenly, and then it stopped abruptly. In the next moment, the flames shook and transformed into a fiery red figure, a graceful and pretty figure. Bang! An enormous bang sounded out. It was Feng Hao who has his eyes wide open as he fell directly to the ground and was completely devoid of any signs of life. He was dead. After Feng Hao's corpse fell to the ground, the surroundings were deathly silent. The surrounding crowd of Feng clan disciples that were spectating the event stared at the young woman in fiery red clothes with a dumbstruck expression, and they were unable to say a single word for a long time. After a long time, they recovered from their shock. Heavens! I'm not seeing things, right? She killed Feng Hao. Feng Hao is the only grandson of the third elder. The third elder's son died earlier, and Feng Hao is the only descendant that remains in his family. With Feng Hao's death, his bloodline can be considered to have been completely cut off. She's too ruthless. Even if she's the granddaughter of Senior Shu, the eldest master isn't able to protect her, since she killed Feng Hao. Yeah, no matter how much the eldest master respects Senior Shu, but the granddaughter of Senior Shu had killed the only grandson of the third elder. If the eldest master interferes in this, it would be difficult for him to give the third elder an explanation this time. The group of Feng clan disciples whispered in discussion. Many people couldn't help but shake their heads as they looked at Feng Tian Wu, and their eyes revealed traces of pity. Obviously, they didn't think that Feng Tian Wu would be able to survive. Tian Wu. Duan Lingtian couldn't help but be stunned when he saw Feng Tian Wu directly kill Feng Hao. But he was merely stunned for a moment. He glanced indifferently at Yi Shang who stood nearby while shivering, and then his gaze moved on to Feng Tian Wu before lightly smiling. Tian Wu, let's go back. Feng Tian Wu's beautiful face seemed to be covered in a layer of ice, yet when she heard Duan Lingtian's words, it instead gradually melted. Subsequently, she walked side by side with Duan Lingtian to leave the martial practice field. Bang! Duan Lingtian and Feng Tian Wu had only just left when Yi Shang was unable to support himself any longer and collapsed on the ground, and his forehead broke out with cold sweat. At that instant earlier, he felt death was that much closer. No matter if it was the violet-clothed young man or the red-clothed young woman, their strengths far surpassed him and were beyond his reach. Killing him was exceedingly easy. Now, he felt as if he'd gotten back his life. But when he recalled the humiliation he suffered earlier, his eyes still flashed with frightful cold lights. So what if you're stronger? Both of you are still juniors in the end. Humiliating me, the second young master of the Yi clan, in public, is equivalent to slapping the face of the Yi clan. Let me see how both of you endure the flames of rage of my Yi clan's patriarch. Yi Shang took a deep breath and seemed to have taken stimulants as he abruptly stood up and headed out of the Feng clan estate. As for the corpse of his friend, Feng Hao, he disregarded it. At this moment, Duan Lingtian and Feng Tian Wu have arrived at the estate that Feng Wudao resided in. Big brother Duan, why didn't you ask me why I killed him? The atmosphere that seemed to be peaceful all along the way was broken by Feng Tianwu in the end. There's no need to ask. Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled lightly. Since you did it with your own two hands, then he naturally said something that he shouldn't have, he surely deserved death. His words showed unconditional support to Feng Tianwu. Feng Tianwu's finally revealed a wisp of a smile when she heard Duan Lingtian's words. Big brother Duan, let's return. Feng Tianwu called out to Duan Lingtian before the two of them returned into the estate. After they returned, Duan Lingtian noticed that King Yang was already gone. He said he's returning first, besides that, I told him that you'll stay here with me for the next 10 days, said Feng Wudao to Duan Lingtian. Okay, Duan Lingtian nodded and didn't refuse. Besides that, he told me of the conflict between you and the wife of the Zhang clan's patriarch. I've already asked Elder Kong to help you deal with this matter. Feng Wudao continued. In the future, the wife of the Zhang clan's patriarch won't cause trouble for you again. Thank you, Uncle Feng. Duan Lingtian hurriedly expressed his gratitude. Zhang clan, big brother Duan, what happened? Feng Tianwu looked curiously at Duan Lingtian. It's nothing actually, it was only a small matter. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian spoke of what he encountered in the Zhang clan and the 2 times the Zhang clan patriarch's wife sent people to kill him. What, she wants to kill you? Feng Tianwu's beautiful face flushed red with anger. Don't worry, I'm fine. Duan Lingtian shook his head, and then he looked at Feng Wudao. Uncle Feng, besides her reliance of the Zhang clan, that Zhang clan patriarch's wife comes from a clan that seems to not be weak. Don't worry. Feng Wudao had a calm expression, and his eyes revealed strong confidence. From today onwards, the Zhang clan patriarch's wife will be like a mouse that has seen a cat when she sees you. Duan Lingtian gasped in his head when he heard this. At this moment, he truly realized how domineering Feng Wudao was. Zhang clan estate. On this day, an unexpected guest arrived at the Zhang clan estate. Senior Kong. At the Zhang clan audience hall, the Zhang clan's patriarch respectfully greeted the old man. As the Zhang clan's patriarch, his status could be said to be extremely illustrious in the entire Darken dynasty. But he knew in his heart that he was nothing before this old man. As the top inscription master of the Darken dynasty, the old man had an extremely lofty status, and even the Feng clan's patriarch had to be respectful and reverent when he met the old man, let alone him, the patriarch of the Zhang clan. Patriarch Zhang, now that I think about it, both of us haven't met for many years. Elder Kong glanced indifferently at the Zhang clan's patriarch. Yes, the Zhang clan's patriarch hurriedly nodded, and he didn't dare dally in the slightest. Subsequently, he asked, Senior Kong, may I know why you've come to my Zhang clan this time? He believed that if it wasn't for something, then it would be impossible for the old man to come to his Zhang clan. First, call over your wife and second son, said Elder Kong. Wife, second son. The expression of the Zhang clan's patriarch became slightly grim when he heard this, and he said with slight fear, Elder Kong, could it be that wife and unfilial son of mine have offended you? If they've really offended Elder Kong, I'll surely not let them off lightly. They didn't offend me. Elder Kong shook his head. Just call them over. The Zhang clan's patriarch heaved a sigh of relief when he heard his wife didn't cause any trouble, and he said respectfully, yes. Subsequently, the Zhang clan's patriarch instructed the servants outside the audience hall to call his wife over. Senior Kong. Meanwhile, he instead respectfully and reverently accompanied by the old man's side, as he was deeply afraid of being neglectful to the old man. Patriarch Zhang, I heard that eldest son of yours that left the clan for a long time has returned, moreover, his strength seems to be not bad. Congratulations, said Elder Kong to the Zhang clan patriarch. Thank you, Senior Kong. When the Zhang clan's patriarch heard the old man mention his eldest son, he couldn't help but have a slightly complicated expression, yet his expression was mostly filled with gratification. I've heard a little bit about your eldest son as well. This old fellow will overrate his abilities here and advise Patriarch Zhang. Children can take care of themselves. A union of clans by marriage is only a method that the weak use to socialize. Elder Kong spoke word by word. Senior Kong's teaching is correct. The Zhang clan patriarch nodded, yet he couldn't help but laugh bitterly and even mutter in his heart. Do you think that everyone is your Feng clan? Do you think our Zhang clan has a formidable inscription master like you and is waiting for others to come curry favor with us? But he knew clearly that the marriage of his eldest son had already become inevitable now, and he was unable to interfere. Even if he wanted to interfere now, he was unable. Presently, he and even the entire Zhang clan's Achilles heel was held firmly in the hands of his eldest son. Now, the Zhang clan was waiting for that son of his to become eminent and bring honor to the clan in the dynasty martial competition and even the martial competition of the 10 dynasties. Patriarch, the madam and second young master have arrived. Suddenly, a respectful and reverent voice sounded out from outside the audience hall. 656 Chapter 657, Feng Clan's third elder. Subsequently, a middle-aged woman and a young man in embroidered clothes walked in the audience hall with large strides. Come meet Elder Kong. The Zhang clan's patriarch looked at his wife and son and spoke in a low voice. Presently, the people that entered were precisely the Zhang clan patriarch's wife and the second young master, Zhang Shouyuan. Elder Kong. Both of them were stunned when they heard the Zhang clan patriarch. In next to no time, the wife of the Zhang clan's patriarch seemed to have remembered something, and she squeezed out a trace of a smile as she hurriedly stood by the patriarch's side and bowed to the old man. Greetings Elder Kong. Obviously, she'd heard of this old man of the Feng clan. Elder Kong. Zhang Shouyuan hurriedly bowed as well, and he had a smile on his face. Although he wasn't quite familiar with the older generation experts of the Darken dynasty, his father had notified him earlier via void transmission, and it allowed him to realize how extraordinary the old man before him was. But in next to no time, the smiles of the 3 members of the Zhang clan froze. HMPH. Along with Elder Kong's cold snort, he instantly attacked. Whoosh. With a raise of his hand, a condensed origin energy palm print whistles out to imprint itself onto the location of the woman's dantian. Ah! The woman immediately let out a miserable and shrill cry, and then she held onto her dantian as she bent her body and started shivering. My cultivation. At this moment, the woman recovered from her shock, and her eyes almost split apart as she stared defiantly at Elder Kong. Why? She knew clearly who the old man before her was. She was nothing but an ant before the old man. Elder Kong, why? The Zhang clan patriarch's expression darkened, and he suppressed the flames of rage in his heart as he asked in bewilderment, whereas, the nearby Zhang Shouyuan was dumbstruck since long ago. Why? Elder Kong glanced indifferently at the woman, and then he said slowly, I'll tell you the truth, it wasn't my intention to cripple your cultivation. A short sentence from Elder Kong caused traces of coldness to arise from the bottom of their hearts. Who would be able to ask this old man to head over to the Zhang clan? Elder Kong, what you mean it? This is the intention of Lord Wu Dao. The Zhang clan patriarch couldn't help but gasp, and he asked with a trembling voice. According to his knowledge, even though Elder Kong was a member of the Feng clan, even the Feng clan's patriarch and the 2 ancestors of the Feng clan were unable to order Elder Kong about. Only a single person was able to make Elder Kong do something, and that was the Feng clan eldest master, Feng Wu Dao. Patriarch Zhang, you're very intelligent. Elder Kong nodded. Elder Kong, why did Lord Wu Dao want to do this? I really don't know how I offended him. When she heard that Feng Wu Dao was the one pulling the strings, the woman's countenance went ghastly pale, and her eyes that originally contained slight rage instantly dimmed down and became listless. She knew clearly in her heart that if that person really wanted to go against her, then not to mention the Zhang clan, even if the powers she came from were to be combined with the Zhang clan, they wouldn't even be the slightest match for him. That person and her were utterly not on the same level. If the distance between her and that person was really described, then it would be the difference between the heavens and the earth. It was precisely because of this that she was curious about how she'd offended that person. Although she was arrogant, if it were to involve that person, then no matter how brave she was, she wouldn't dare be the slightest bit angry. Why? Elder Kong glanced deeply at the woman. You really don't know? Elder Kong, please point it out clearly for me. The woman was slightly not resigned as she spoke. HMPH. Elder Kong grunted coldly, and then he said. The second-level void interpretation stage martial artist you sent out died this morning. Swoosh. The woman's face went deathly pale when she heard this, and her legs went weak, causing her to fall to the ground. You understand now, right? Elder Kong asked with a calm expression. What exactly is going on? When he saw Elder Kong and his wife speaking in an unclear manner, the Zhang clan patriarch couldn't help but frown and look towards his wife. The woman nodded stiffly when she heard Elder Kong, and then she seemed to have thought of something and raised her head slightly difficultly before looking at Elder Kong. There's something I still don't understand, why does Lord Wu Dao help him? This was something she couldn't wrap her head around, no matter how hard she tried. As far as she was concerned, Lord Wu Dao stood high above the masses, and even the Darken Dynasty's emperor didn't dare be the slightest bit disrespectful when facing Lord Wu Dao. That kid was only someone that came from a tiny little empire. Logically speaking, it was impossible for there to be any connection between him and Lord Wu Dao. Since you're so interested in knowing, then I'll tell you, he's Lord Wu Dao's son-in-law. As he finished speaking, Elder Kong spoke word by word. Son-in-law, Lord Wu Dao's. For a time, it wasn't just the woman that was muddled, even the Zhang clan patriarch was muddled, whereas, Zhang Shouyuan was stunned. Wasn't that person of the Feng clan someone who lived his life alone? He has a daughter. Moreover, he even has a son-in-law. Lord Wu Dao said that the matter between you and him will end here. If you are to be impervious to reason, then Lord Wu Dao wouldn't mind making a move himself, and let you remember it properly. Elder Kong spoke as he walked out of the audience hall. He walked until he arrived at the door before stopping, and then he turned around to glance at the woman. Once Lord Wu Dao makes a move, what will happen after that isn't something I can predict. After he finished speaking, Elder Kong left right away, vanishing before the eyes of the 3 Zhang clan members. The woman instead completely lost her strength and crashed onto the ground. Mother. Zhang Shouyuan hurriedly squatted down and supported the woman up. Wife, what exactly is going on? The Zhang clan's patriarch looked at the woman and asked with a low voice. He's realized that this matter wasn't ordinary. But the woman instead disregarded him, and she only stared blankly in a trance, and her eyes revealed traces of terror. For a time, the Zhang clan's patriarch was helpless. He was able to perceive that it would be useless no matter how much he asked now. He could only wait for his wife to get well and recover slightly before being able to obtain any answer. Feng clan. How? An aged and forlorn voice abruptly sounded out in the spacious courtyard. Within the courtyard, an old man squatted on the ground as his trembling emaciated hands lightly stroked the face of the young man that lay on the ground. The young man's countenance was pale and completely devoid of any signs of life. Obviously, he'd already passed away long ago. After a short moment, the old man took a deep breath, and his eyes revealed frightful killing intent. No matter who it is, since you dare kill my grandson, I'll tear you to pieces. The Feng clan's direct descendants were divided into many lines. His line had been passed down to his grandson, the one and only son. Now, his grandson was dead and it meant that his line would die out. How could he not be enraged? Speak, who did it? Finally, the old man stood up and looked at the 2 Feng clan disciples that carried his grandson's corpse back and asked with a low voice. It was that granddaughter of Senior Shu. The 2 Feng clan disciples didn't dare dally and spoke hurriedly. When the old man heard what these 2 Feng clan disciples said, his face went pale, and his body couldn't help but tremble intensely. After that, he asked once more as if he wanted to confirm something. What did you say? That granddaughter of Senior Shu, she seems to be called Tian Wu, said a Feng clan disciple. Feng Tian Wu, it's her, why is it her? The old man successively took a few steps back and closed his eyes in pain before he crashed down to kneel on the floor and kneel before the corpse of his grandson. Others didn't know the true identity of Feng Tian Wu, but how could he not? For a time, the 2 Feng clan disciples looked at each other with puzzled expressions. The scene before them seemed to be completely different from what they imagined. In their imagination, the old man ought to become so angry that his hair seems to stand up, and then he would go look for trouble with the murderer and even kill the murderer to take revenge for his one and only grandson. Yet now, the old man didn't act in such a way. Moreover, he seemed to have slightly given up to despair. Both of you, leave. Finally, the old man's voice sounded out abruptly, and it contained slight shame and rage mixed within, terrifying the 2 Feng clan disciples to the point they left hastily. What's wrong with Third Elder today? He wouldn't be sick, right? This isn't like him. Yeah, the Third Elder has always been extremely doting towards Feng Hao. Logically speaking, since Feng Hao was killed today, he ought to directly head over to take revenge. Yet now, he seems to not intend to do this. After the 2 Feng clan disciples left, they discussed in a light voice and felt deeply puzzled. How? In the courtyard, the old man looked at the corpse before him and had an expression of grief and indignation. Grandfather is useless and is unable to take revenge for you. But no matter what, grandfather will seek justice for you. After he finished speaking, the old man stood up and left the courtyard. After a short moment, the old man headed all the way towards the estate within the Feng clan estate that the Feng clan's eldest master, Feng Wu Dao, resided in. Within this estate, Duan Lingtian was chatting idly with Feng Wudao and Feng Tianwu. Presently, Feng Tianwu's mood had completely eased up, and it caused Duan Lingtian to be unable to help but heave a sigh of relief. Knock, knock. Suddenly, the sound of the door being knocked sounded out. Along with Grandma Shu opening the door, the rapid footsteps came from afar and entered into the ears of Duan Lingtian, who sat within the audience hall. This person has come with bad intentions. By only hearing the footsteps, Duan Lingtian was able to sense that something was off. I wonder if it's the third elder or the Yi clan members. Duan Lingtian thought in his heart as he guessed. The smile on Feng Wudao's face was restrained as well, and his eyes emitted strands of bright lights. Meanwhile, Feng Wudao noticed that the atmosphere was off as well. Eldest Master, Feng Qing seeks an audience. An aged and sonorous voice clearly entered into the audience hall. Third elder, truly a rare visitor. Feng Wudao stood up and instantly vanished before Duan Lingtian and Feng Tianwu's eyes, and when he appeared once more, he was already at the entrance to the audience hall. How swift! Duan Lingtian's pupils couldn't help but constrict. At the same time, under his curiosity, Duan Lingtian's spiritual force silently stretched out to sweep towards Feng Wudao. He wanted to detect Feng Wudao's exact cultivation. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian noticed that his spiritual force hadn't even approached Feng Wudao before vanishing into thin air. It was as if his spiritual force was a rock that sunk into an ocean. With my current spiritual force, I'm actually unable to detect Uncle Feng's cultivation. For a time, Duan Lingtian gasped in his heart. There are only two possibilities as to why my spiritual force is unable to detect Uncle Feng's cultivation. 657 Chapter 658, The Unfortunate Yi Shang. The first reason is Uncle Feng's cultivation is already not at the void interpretation stage, and it's very likely that he has broken through to the void transformation stage. The second possibility is that Uncle Feng is still a void interpretation stage martial artist, but he has comprehended advanced concept. No matter which it was, Feng Wudao's strength was enough to cause shock in Duan Lingtian. As expected of the existence that possesses an extraordinary status in the Feng clan. Third elder, Feng Tianwu's expression went grim, and she hurriedly followed over, whereas, Duan Lingtian naturally followed behind her. After a short moment, Duan Lingtian and Feng Tianwu followed behind Feng Wudao to slowly walk out the audience hall. Outside the audience hall stood an old man past the age of 70, and at this moment, the old man stared fixedly at Feng Tianwu with eyes that emitted flames and seemed if he wished for nothing more than to kill Feng Tianwu right away. Third elder, is there something you need? Feng Wudao naturally noticed the old man's gaze, and his face sank slightly as he asked. Eldest master. The old man took a deep breath and moved his gaze onto Feng Wudao, and the hatred in his eyes transformed into boundless sorry. My only grandson was killed today, I hope that eldest master can give me justice. What? Feng Wudao frowned. What happened? He naturally knew of the situation of the old man's line. The old man's son had died early, and only a single grandson remained. Now that the old man's grandson had died, it would also mean that the last son was gone and the old man's line would be cut off. Eldest master, I beg you to give me justice. The old man knelt on the ground and implored. For a time, the frown on Feng Wudao's face grew deeper. When he saw this scene, Duan Lingtian didn't dare hesitate and hurriedly send a voice transmission to tell Feng Wudao about everything had happened earlier. He was truly worried that Feng Wudao would agree to give the old man justice. In that way, even if Feng Tianwu was Feng Wudao's daughter, Feng Wudao would have to do some things to appease the old man, and that was something Duan Lingtian wasn't willing to see. After Feng Wudao heard Duan Lingtian's voice transmission, his brows knit tightly before looking at Feng Tianwu, who was by his side, and asked with a low voice. Tianwu, you killed the third elder's grandson? Yes. Feng Tianwu nodded and admitted with a calm expression. Did you know that he was third elder's only grandson? Feng Wudao asked again. I've heard of it. Feng Tianwu nodded. Then why did you strike so ruthlessly? Feng Wudao asked again. Meanwhile, even the old man that knelt on the ground couldn't refrain from raising his head to look at Feng Tianwu. Feng Tianwu knew clearly in her heart that if she didn't explain it now, then it would surely cause her father to be in a difficult position. So, after she took a deep breath, she spoke frankly. Feng Hao made 2 rude remarks about me and insulted me, and Big Brother Duan stood up for me. After that, he himself was afraid of Big Brother Duan, so he sent a voice transmission to threaten me. He said that if I didn't accompany him through the night tonight, then not only would Big Brother Duan die, I would as well. As she finished speaking, Feng Tianwu's voice became slightly colder. So he deserved death. Feng Tianwu looked at the old man that knelt on the ground and spoke without the slightest scruple, whereas, the old man's expression completely went pale when he heard the last sentence Feng Tianwu spoke. Never had he imagined that there was such a reason behind it. Third Elder, did you hear it clearly? At practically the instant Feng Tianwu finished speaking, Feng Wudao's face seemed to be covered in a layer of ice, and he spoke with a low and deep voice. If I was present at that time, I'm afraid I wouldn't hold back either. My daughter has had a rough life, yet in the end, she was actually insulted by your grandson like this. Do you think your grandson deserved death? When the old man heard this, his expression was extremely pale. Eldest master, I acted rashly in this matter, indeed, he deserved death. As he finished speaking, the old man stood up, and then he bid his farewell to Feng Wudao before leaving dejectedly. Ling Tian, sit down and accompany Tian Wu in the rear courtyard. Suddenly, Duan Ling Tian noticed Feng Wudao looking over. Okay, Duan Ling Tian nodded and then called out to Feng Tianwu. Before he left, Duan Ling Tian didn't forget to send a voice transmission to Feng Wudao. Uncle Feng, that third elder of your Feng clan seemed to not be a person that's easy to deal with. I have the feeling that he won't let this matter go. Ling Tian, why do you think I asked you and Tianwu to head to the rear courtyard? Feng Wudao replied with a question when he heard Duan Ling Tian's words. This instead caused Duan Ling Tian to be unable to help but be stunned, and when he returned to his senses, he understood what Feng Wudao meant. It turned out that Feng Wudao had perceived it long ago. Seems like I've said something unneeded. Duan Ling Tian smiled embarrassedly and then headed to the rear courtyard with Feng Tianwu, and at the same time, he didn't forget to console Feng Tianwu. Tianwu, you don't have to pay attention to words spoken by fellows that are worse than animals. Big Brother Duan, I'm fine. Feng Tianwu squeezed out a trace of a smile when she heard Duan Ling Tian's consolation. Outside Feng Wudao's estate. After the Feng clan's third elder, Feng Qing, left, his eyes were suffused with a ghastly sheen. Feng Wudao, your daughter ought to not know her birth, right? Once I dig out the proof that our Feng clan annihilated the Long clan all those years ago, I'll help you tell her the truth from all those years ago, ha 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 ha. When he thought up to here, Feng Qing had a savage expression on his face as if he was possessed by a devil. He knew clearly in his heart that it was practically impossible for him to kill Feng Tianwu and take revenge for his grandson. With Feng Wudao present by Feng Tianwu's side, it was impossible for him to succeed in his entire lifetime. So he chose another method to take revenge on Feng Tianwu. Once you find out the truth about what happened all those years ago, it ought to hurt you more than death, right? Your own grandfather was angered to death by your mother, and your own mother committed suicide because of this. Your own grandfather, grandmother, and many relatives from your mother's side all died at the hands of the clan you currently reside in. I'm curious, what expression would you have after you know all this? Feng Qing muttered to himself. Unfortunately, you're bound to be unable to see it. Right at this moment, an indifferent voice suddenly sounded out by Feng Qing's ears. The voice seemed as if it was beside his ears, yet also seemed as if it was 1,000 miles away, and it was difficult for one to ascertain. But this voice was extremely familiar. He'd heard this voice just moments ago. In the next moment, Feng Qing felt danger envelop his heart, and it caused his to be practically suffocated. Feng Wu. Swish. An exceedingly swift fiery red flowing light sliced through the horizon, and it seemed to have transformed into an extremely tiny shooting star that pierced through the space between Feng Qing's brows. Instantly, a bloody hole appeared between Feng Qing's brows, and blood flowed unendingly. Bang! He quickly fell into a pool of blood with his eyes stared wide open, and he stared blankly into the sky as he gradually lost all signs of life. In next to no time, a strand of flame suddenly leapt about on the space between Feng Qing's brows, and the flame covered Feng Qing's entire body in the blink of an eye and burned him into ashes. Because this place was remote, no one noticed the events that happened here in a short amount of time, so no one knew that Feng Qing had already died. Whoosh! As if a gust of wind blew by, Feng Qing, who transformed into ashes, scattered with the wind, and he instantly vanished in the sky. Whereas a fiery red figure abruptly appeared at the place Feng Qing stood before. The owner of the fiery red figure was a dignified middle-aged man that wore a fiery red long robe, and he muttered to himself. In my entire life, the times I've treated my daughter unfairly are already more than enough, no matter who it is, if you dare make my daughter unhappy, then I'll surely not let you off. After Duan Lingtian and Feng Tianwu stayed in the rear courtyard for some time, they returned to the front courtyard. Because an unexpected guest had arrived. This time, the unexpected guests were two people. One of them was someone that neither Duan Lingtian nor Feng Tianwu were unfamiliar to. Yi Shang, the second young master of the Yi clan. Father, it's him, he slapped me twice and was disrespectful to our Yi clan. Yi Shang pointed at Duan Lingtian as he spoke to the middle-aged man in an azure robe by his side. The middle-aged man had an appearance that was slightly similar to Yi Shang, and he was obviously the patriarch of the Yi clan. Presently, when the Yi clan patriarch heard Yi Zhang's words, he didn't target Duan Lingtian but instead looked at Feng Wudao who stood at the side. Lord Wudao, he is. As the Yi clan's patriarch, he had a discerning gaze, and he was able to discern that the Feng clan's eldest master, Feng Wudao, seemed to regard this violet-clothed young man as important. He's my son-in-law. Feng Wudao glanced indifferently at the Yi clan's patriarch, and spoke unhurriedly. No matter what you want to do, Patriarch Yi, please take your leave. Son-in-law, the Yi clan's patriarch was dumbstruck, and Yi Shang was dumbstruck as well. Son-in-law, how could this person of the Feng clan have a son-in-law? Didn't he have no children? Lord Wudao, may I ask where your daughter is? The Yi clan patriarch took a deep breath and couldn't refrain from asking. At the same time, his gaze unintentionally descended onto the red-clothed young woman that stood at the side, and he felt his scalp go numb. He found out clearly about the conflict between his son and this pair of young man and young woman earlier. Of course, what he found out from his son was limited. According to his son, this red-clothed young woman that he insulted as a lowly servant was only an insignificant servant. But now, a bad premonition arose in his heart instead. No matter how he looked at her, the red-clothed young woman before him didn't feel like a servant girl, and she was more like an eldest young miss. Patriarch Yi, has your eyesight gone blurry? Isn't my daughter standing by my son-in-law's side? Feng Wudao spoke indifferently. Practically as if he was going together with Feng Wudao's words, Duan Lingtian stretched out his hand to grab Feng Tianwu's delicate hand and squinted his eyes as he looked at the father and son pair of the Yi clan. Especially that Yi Shang, Duan Lingtian deliberately glanced deeply at him. Duan Lingtian knew that Yi Shang was about to be struck with misfortune. Yi Zhang's current expression was as unsightly could be, and his body even shivered from fear. She's the daughter of Lord Wudao. Damn Feng Hao, didn't you say she's only a servant girl? Now, Yi Shang even had the heart to whip Feng Hao's corpse. Trapping someone wasn't done like this, right? Bastard. Right at this moment, the Yi clan's patriarch who recovered from his astonishment raised his hand and slapped Yi Shang, hitting Yi Shang to the point he became dizzy and his head spun. This caused one side of Yi Zhang's face that originally had recovered slightly from the healing medicinal pills he consumed to become swollen once more. 658 Chapter 659, A Mountain of Treasure That Can't Be Used. Father. Yi Shang was bewildered, completely bewildered. Didn't his father come to stand up for him? Bastard, you still have the face to call out to me. I don't have a son like you. The Yi clan's patriarch had an enraged expression, and with a raise of his hand, he slapped Yi Shang once more, hitting Yi Shang to the point his face became like a pig's head. But even then, he still didn't have any attention to stop. Slap, 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 numerous slaps were swung out by him, and Yi Zhang's face was almost struck open by his father. This scene was unexpected to Duan Lingtian, yet with a quick thought, he couldn't help but sigh in his heart. As expected of a clan's patriarch, he truly has resolution, he seems to be teaching his son a lesson, yet he's actually protecting him. It was extremely easy for Duan Lingtian to guess the Yi clan patriarch's intentions. Today, the Yi clan's patriarch had come under the lead of Yi Shang to denounce Feng Tianwu's crimes, and he naturally intended to deal with Feng Tianwu. But after he found out about Feng Tianwu's true identity, the Yi clan's patriarch surely didn't dare have any thought of taking revenge any longer. Feng Tianwu's father was Feng Wudao. Feng Wudao was the eldest master of the Feng clan who possessed an extremely high cultivation, and in the rumors, he'd already surpassed the two ancestors of the Feng clan and almost possessed a similar strength as the strongest person in the Darken Dynasty's imperial family. How could his Yi clan dare offend an existence like this? Slap. With a raise of his hand, the Yi clan patriarch knocked Yi Shang out with a slap before looking respectfully and reverently at Feng Wudao as he lowered his head. Lord Wu Dao, I haven't taught my son well and caused my unfilial son to offend your daughter and son-in-law. I hope Lord Wu Dao can punish me for my wrongs. The Yi clan patriarch spoke exceedingly humbly. As for Feng Wu Dao, he had a calm expression from the beginning until the end, and it was as if what happened before was completely unrelated to him. Patriarch Yi. Finally, Feng Wu Dao spoke indifferently. Since you've already taught your son a lesson, this matter is done. I hope a similar incident doesn't happen a second time. Yes, thank you, Lord Wu Dao. The Yi clan patriarch felt relieved as he spoke respectfully. Subsequently, he bid his farewell to Feng Wu Dao before carrying the fainted Yi Shang and hastily leaving the estate Feng Wu Dao resided in the Feng clan. All along the way, as he looked to the flesh that had split open on the face of his fainted son, his heart was dripping with blood. Although in terms of natural talent, his second son was inferior to his eldest son, he was his son no matter what, after all. Now that Yi Shang had been beaten to such a state by him, it would be a lie if he said his heart didn't ache. Shang, don't blame father for being ruthless. If I didn't use this trick of injuring you to win the forgiveness of Feng Wu Dao in time today, it is unknown if you could keep your life. The Yi clan patriarch sighed. There had always been a sentence that was spread throughout the Darken dynasty, offend the king of hell rather than offend Wu Dao. How terrifying Feng Wu Dao was could be seen from this. After the Yi clan father and son left, the spacious estate once again returned to peace. There's another 10 days of time. During these 10 days, both of you must cultivate properly. Even a 7th level void initiation stage martial artist might not be able to advance in the dynasty martial competition. Feng Wu Dao looked at Duan Lingtian and Feng Tianwu, and he spoke with a serious expression. As for the final martial competition of the 10 dynasties, it will be even more intense. At that time, if you don't possess a cultivation at the void interpretation stage, then you'll probably have no qualification to compete for the top 10 positions. Void interpretation stage. Feng Wu Dao's words were spoken clearly and decisively. Feng Tianwu's beautiful face strained slightly, whereas Duan Lingtian's face was calm instead. This was something that he was mentally prepared for long ago, so he wasn't so surprised. Tianwu, return to your room first. I have something to say to Ling Tian. Under Feng Wu Dao's gesture, Feng Tianwu left the room, whereas Feng Wu Dao looked at Duan Lingtian, and a contemplating smile unknowingly appeared on the corners of his mouth. When he saw the smile on the corners of Feng Wu Dao's mouth, Duan Lingtian was first stunned, and then he laughed timidly. Uncle Feng, what do you want to say to me? Ling Tian, I want to know what your cultivation is now, and how is your comprehension of concept. I heard Tianwu say that you were far from using your full strength when dealing with that Yi clan's second young master. Feng Wu Dao glanced deeply at Duan Lingtian as he asked. Uncle Feng, wouldn't you know my cultivation and comprehension of concept when the dynasty martial competition begins? Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled. Feng Wu Dao laughed bitterly. You little kid, you're even keeping me guessing. Fine, at that time, let me see if you're a match for Tianwu. Grandma Shu, prepare a room for Ling Tian. Subsequently, Feng Wu Dao instructed Grandma Shu that stood at the side. Yes, Grandma Shu replied respectfully before gesturing at Duan Lingtian and bringing him along to leave through the audience hall's entrance. Duan Lingtian followed behind Grandma Shu and walked into a unique small courtyard. The small courtyard was very clear, and so were the rooms within it. Obviously, it was cleaned regularly, and it only required some daily necessities to be prepared. Young Master Ling Tian, if you have any instructions, feel free to voice them. I won't disturb you any longer. After she prepared the daily necessities for Duan Lingtian, Grandma Shu bid her farewell and left, and she closed the courtyard door on her way out. After Grandma Shu left, Duan Lingtian sat cross-legged on the bed and withdrew the wind concept fragment before closing his eyes. At this moment, Duan Lingtian felt his mood had completely calmed. But he didn't circulate the 9 Dragons War Sovereign technique to cultivate. Presently, his origin energy had already arrived at the limit of the 9th level of the Void Initiation stage, and he only lacked a critical factor before being able to break through to the Void Interpretation stage. This critical factor was to comprehend intermediate concept. At this moment, Duan Lingtian started to ponder slightly, and he made a conclusion towards the strength he possessed currently. My current cultivation is at the 9th level of the Void Initiation stage. Merely my origin energy is comparable to the strength of 12 ancient horned dragons. Besides that, my wind concept has already broken through to the 7th level. Even though my 7th level wind concept is still at the elementary stage, it's sufficient to compare to the strength of 7 ancient horned dragons. Besides that, because of the lack of a concept fragment to assist my comprehension, my lightning concept's advancement is far inferior to my wind concept. As for the earth concept, even though I possess the 7th level advanced concept fragment left behind by the earth puppet in the Sword Monarch's treasure, but I've currently placed my entire heart and soul onto the wind concept. So I'm temporarily unable to divert my attention to comprehend it. When he thought up to here, Duan Lingtian couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Because of possessing a 5th level advanced wind concept fragment he obtained from the Sword Monarch's treasure that day to assist his comprehension of wind concept advanced by leaps and bounds. Presently, he'd already comprehended until the 7th level. With the assistance of the concept fragment, the comprehension of elementary concept had indeed become exceedingly simple. I have a feeling that I will perhaps be able to comprehend 8th level wind concept before the dynasty martial competition. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. As for the other 2 types of concept, I've only comprehended lightning concept to the 3rd level. The earth concept was the last concept I comprehended, and it's only at the 1st level. Earth concept is fine because I have the assistance of the 7th level advanced concept fragment to be utilized in the future, and its advance would surely be exceedingly swift. When he thought of the lightning concept, Duan Lingtian was slightly helpless. But, possessing something is better than nothing. 3rd level lightning concept is capable of increasing my strength by the strength of 3 ancient horned dragons at any rate. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian felt at ease. Unfortunately, I don't have a lightning concept fragment in my possession, otherwise, my advancement in lightning concept in the future will surely be extremely swift. Of course, Duan Lingtian only thought like this in his heart. How could a concept fragment be something he could obtain just by thinking about it? Not to mention anything else, just within the territory of the Darken dynasty and the various dynasties around it, there might not be a second person besides him that possessed concept fragments. Concept fragments are too difficult to come by. Duan Lingtian sighed. There's also those 3 profundity fragments. Besides the concept fragments, there were also 3 profundity fragments in Duan Lingtian's possession. The profundity fragments were left behind by the white-clothed sword monarch, and they were respectively profundity fragments of wind, lightning, and sword. But, with Duan Lingtian's current comprehension in concept, he was utterly unable to comprehend the 3 profundity fragments. The profundity fragments would only be of use when Duan Lingtian was able to comprehend his wind, lightning, and sword concepts to become a 9th level advanced concept. Presently, Duan Lingtian's situation was no different than possessing a mountain of treasures, but he was unable to use a shred of it. Only when he obtained the authority to unearth the mountain of treasures would he be able to utilize the treasures. Obviously, Duan Lingtian didn't possess this authority now. As things are now, it's completely useless for me to continue cultivating the 9 Dragons War Sovereign technique. The matter of top priority now is to comprehend a higher level of wind concept. Duan Lingtian had a certain level of perception towards his plan to break through to the void interpretation stage. He put his mind and soul into comprehending wind concept. To comprehend 8th level wind concept and even 9th level wind concept. After he comprehended 9th level wind concept, advancing a step forward would be the 1st level intermediate wind concept. At that time, he would be able to break through to the void interpretation stage. With this understanding, Duan Lingtian opened his eyes and got off his bed before walking out of the room, and then he stood in the courtyard and silently felt the breeze that blew on his face. In his hand, he tightly gripped the wind concept fragment. Wind. At the same time, Duan Lingtian's mind and soul was completely immersed in his comprehension of wind concept. Time silently passed by. Deep in the night, Duan Lingtian remained unmoving. Suddenly, the door to the small courtyard was opened, and a thin and aged figure walked in with large strides, a figure of an old lady. After the old lady placed the fine wine and delicacies in her hand onto the stone table in the courtyard, she glanced at the violet-clothed young man that stood silently there before turning around and leaving, and she closed the door on her way out. Grandma Shu, is Lingtian still cultivating? The old lady had just walked a few steps when she heard a voice come from ahead. Eldest master. Grandma Shu bowed respectfully to the person that had arrived. This person was precisely Feng Wudao. Feng Wudao nodded. Young master Lingtian isn't cultivating, and he's instead standing in the courtyard. He seems to be comprehending concept. Grandma Shu spoke of everything she saw earlier. Comprehending concept? Feng Wudao's brows raised, and then he walked up a few steps with interest and opened the door to the small courtyard Duan Lingtian resided in. 659 Chapter 660, Young Miss Tian Wu. In the courtyard, the violet-clothed young man stood there quietly like a statue. He really is comprehending concept. Feng Wudao's gaze descended onto the surroundings of the violet-clothed young man. Presently, the surface of the violet-clothed young man was covered with strands of faint flickering azure-colored energy, and a wave of dense aura effused out from it. This aura belonged to concept. This concept wasn't unfamiliar to Feng Wudao. Wind concept. With a raise of his hand, the airflow in the sky flashed out as strong gusts of wind flew out from within his sleeve and gushed towards the violet-clothed young man. Right at this moment, the azure energy on the surface of the young man's body abruptly rose up explosively and blocked the strong wing that assaulted him. Whoosh! In the sky, the energy of heaven and earth roiled to converge into 7 ancient horned dragons in the end. 7th level wind concept. The scene before him caused Feng Wudao to be greatly surprised. This little fellow's comprehension ability is actually so high, it's truly shocking. Amongst the younger generation of the Darken Dynasty, I'm afraid only Tian Wu can surpass him in terms of comprehension ability. But Tian Wu was born with the fire spirit body and possesses a special sense towards fire concept, and it's slightly unfair if she were to be compared with him. Feng Wudao muttered. Perhaps, if Feng Wudao knew that Duan Lingtian relied on a wind concept fragment to be able to comprehend this level of wind concept in such a short period of time, he wouldn't think like this. Kid, you're lucky, I just happen to be skilled in wind concept besides fire concept. Feng Wudao stood on the spot, and his expression turned serious. In the next moment, his hands spread out. Instantly, violent winds blew within the small courtyard and swept towards the violet-clothed young man. Duan Lingtian held the wind concept fragment tightly within his hand and was silently comprehending wind concept with his eyes closed. Through the breeze that flowed in the sky and coupled with the wind concept fragment, his comprehension towards wind concept was improving at an extremely swift speed. Originally, everything was calm and tranquil, but suddenly, Duan Lingtian felt the breeze transform into violent winds that enveloped him within. The violet winds raged and caused Duan Lingtian to be able to better feel the might of wind. Relying on the wind concept fragment, Duan Lingtian noticed that his comprehension towards wind concept had become even faster. After an unknown period of time, the violent winds gradually vanished, and Duan Lingtian awoke from his cultivation as well. Meanwhile, he noticed that it was already deep in the night now. Violent winds actually arose tonight, it's truly unexpected. Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled as he looked at the plants and flowers in the small courtyard that were in ruins from the violent winds. To these plants and flowers, the violent winds were like a nightmare. But to him, the violent winds were instead capable of assisting him to better comprehend wind concept. Young Master Lingtian. Suddenly, an aged voice sounded out from outside the courtyard. Senior. Duan Lingtian opened the door and greeted the person in. It was precisely Grandma Shu. Young Master Lingtian, I brought food over during dinner time, but you were cultivating at that time. I've once again made some food, eat it while it's hot. Grandma Shu placed the fine wine and delicacies on the stone table in the courtyard. Thank you, Senior. Duan Lingtian hurriedly expressed his gratitude. After Grandma Shu left, as Duan Lingtian smelt the fragrance of the food, he felt hungry and swept the food clean like a whirlwind. After eating his fill, Duan Lingtian rested on the table as he raised his head to look at the bright moon in the horizon. The moon tonight was especially round. In the past, there was still little gold to seize my food, now, it's slightly cold. Unknowingly, Duan Lingtian sighed emotionally. Days passed by, day after day. The dynasty martial competition grew closer. Presently, the Darken Dynasty was completely bustling with noise and excitement. Not only had the young experts of the various empires gathered together, even the clans and sects that covered the entire Darken Dynasty had young geniuses as their representative and had come to participate in the dynasty martial competition. But although there were many people, the order in the capital was as good as always, and no one dared recklessly cause trouble in the capital. During these few days, Duan Lingtian stayed in the Feng clan and didn't go anywhere. Even though the approaching of the dynasty martial competition didn't cause him to feel pressure, but he still placed all his time on the comprehension of wind concept. With the wind concept fragment, it was practically impossible for him to encounter a bottleneck in comprehending wind concept. It would be a smooth path all the way. During these few days, Duan Lingtian confirmed one thing, and it was that violent winds would frequently arise while he comprehended wind concept in the small courtyard. But after he asked some guards of the Feng clan, he found out the truth. The weather had always been very good during these past few days, and there never was any violent winds. I presume it ought to be Uncle Feng and Elder Kong that are helping me. Duan Lingtian guessed some things. Days passed by and the day before the dynasty martial competition had finally arrived. At this time, even the entire Feng clan had become bustling. I heard our Feng clan's 2 positions to participate in the dynasty martial competition have already been decided, besides young Master Yun Shang. Who's the other person? At a corner of the Feng clan martial practice field, a Feng clan disciple curiously asked the companion by his side. You don't even know this? The latter was greatly surprised. I was in closed-door cultivation and only came out today. The former rubbed the back of his head shyly as he smiled embarrassedly. I came out from closed-door cultivation today as well, but I'm probably capable of guessing who the other person is. It ought to be young Master Yun Fei. A Feng clan disciples joined over from the distance, and he spoke as a matter of course. Right, beneath the most outstanding young expert of our Feng clan, young Master Yun Shang, it would undoubtedly be young Master Yun Fei. All of you have guessed wrongly, it isn't young Master Yun Fei. It isn't young Master Yun Fei. How could that be possible? What's impossible about that? Besides young Master Yun Shang and young Master Yun Fei, there's still another peerless genius in the younger generation of our Feng clan. Who is it? In next to no time, many Feng clan disciples with information that lagged behind gathered around the well-informed Feng clan disciples and started to inquire about it. The Feng clan disciple that was well-informed was a thin middle-aged man, and after he'd successfully drawn the attention of everyone, he said, all of you ought to have heard of young Miss Tian Wu, right? Of course. Who in our Feng clan doesn't know that young Miss Tian Wu is the only daughter of the eldest master now? I've seen young Miss Tian Wu in the past, but I only thought she was the granddaughter of Senior Shu. I never imagined that she's actually the only daughter of the eldest master. The eldest master was keeping a low profile. If it wasn't for the incident the other day, we would probably only be able to find out the identity of young Miss Tian Wu during the dynasty martial competition. The group of Feng clan disciples were discussing animatedly. Meanwhile, a foolish-looking idiot couldn't help but ask curiously. What are all of you talking about? Besides that, when did the eldest master have a daughter? You wouldn't have not gone out from your home during the past 10 days, right? Instantly, many Feng clan disciples looked at the idiot in surprise, and it was as if they'd discovered a new continent. I haven't gone out for a long time. The idiot replied with slight embarrassment. This caused the surrounding Feng clan disciples to be speechless. In next to no time, there was someone that started explaining. Meanwhile, nearby the Feng clan disciples that were gathered together was a pair of young man and young woman that seemed like a couple made in heaven, and they walked slowly past this group of disciples. Tian Wu, you're a celebrity as well now. The violet-clothed young man lightly smiled. The red-clothed young woman by his side knit her beautiful brows. It's the first time I feel that it turns out that revealing my identity isn't a good thing. I prefer the times in the past when no one knew my identity. Your identity caused you to be bound to have to reveal yourself in public, it was just a matter of time. The violet-clothed young man was precisely Duan Lingtian. All along the way, he was able to hear many discussions related to Feng Tian Wu. Those discussions mostly revolved around Feng Tian Wu's identity, whereas, Feng Tian Wu's identity was revealed a few days ago. In short, it was because of the incident with the Feng clan's third elder's grandson. Moreover, after that, the third elder vanished into thin air. Although no one explained why third elder would vanish into thin air, everyone was able to guess that the disappearance of the third elder was surely related to the matter of his grandson being killed by Feng Tian Wu. Before third elder vanished, there were people that saw him go to the estate of the eldest master, Feng Wudao. But there were also people that saw the third elder leave that estate. After that, the third elder vanished completely. Perhaps, the members of the Feng clan had guesses towards the disappearance of the third elder, yet no one dared speak rashly. Even though the third elder's status in the Feng clan was great, the direct descendant line he was from had already been cut off without descendants, so no one would be willing to offend an existence that they couldn't offend for him. At the same time, Feng Tian Wu was truly known by the Feng clan. Not only that, the news of the Feng clan's eldest master, Feng Wudao, possessed a daughter would have probably spread throughout the entire darkened dynasty capital by now. Let's not talk about this, big brother Ling Tian, how about we spar? Feng Tianwu's beautiful face bloomed with a smile that could overthrow the world. I don't mind. Duan Ling Tian shrugged, and then he looked at the bustling martial practice field and frowned. But this place is slightly unsuitable, right? We'll spar after we return, said Feng Tianwu. Okay, Duan Ling Tian replied. Subsequently, Duan Ling Tian and Feng Tianwu went around half the martial practice field and intended to return. Young Miss Tianwu, she's young Miss Tianwu. Meanwhile, many Feng clan disciples with discerning gazes recognized Feng Tianwu. She's truly beautiful. Supposedly, the eldest master was one of the most handsome in our darkened dynasty all those years ago. I presume that it's impossible for the woman that married him to be ordinary. So, it isn't surprising that they gave birth to such a daughter. Exactly. More and more Feng clan disciples looked at Feng Tianwu. 660.